Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was exiled after restoring the Uchiha, and Hinata chose to follow him into the world, part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Who the hell are you? Tsunade demanded. Oh, Ba-chan, I come seeking answers for a certain blonde that we are both fond of. Jiraiya studied the shade and paled. Kyuubi. The human form of the fox demon lord smirked as he revealed his 9 ghostly tails. You're smarter than you look, Jiraiya of the Sannin. So Naruto's dead, Tsunade said, slumping into her seat, her expression crushed. No. Her head snapped up and there was a hopeful look in her eyes. He's alive. But how? You're here. I am, as I've said to others, I am but a shadow of my former self. Naruto is fine. He holds my chakra, which with each passing day becomes his. I came for answers. He does not know I am here, and depending on what I hear, he may never know. Kyuubi said. He moved about and sat on the chair across from the Hokage, and quirked an eyebrow. Now, are we going to talk like civilized adults, or would you rather we rant and rampage and learn nothing? Jiraiya sat on the edge of the desk and Tsunade looked at the Kyuubi shade. Is he really alright? She asked. Snorts, you care after exiling him. What, realize you lost a powerful weapon? Kyuubi asked with disdain. The kid was crushed being exiled. I have thought long and hard about getting him to come back here and continue what I started. There is much you don't know. Tsunade said. She spent the next hour telling the Kyuubi about the falsified signatures, of Hinata's pact with the vengeance spirit, of the death of the council, the Hyuga massacre. What she'd learned from Hinata about Kakashi's memories. I have guys team out looking for Naruto to bring him back. Tsunade concluded. Kyuubi was thinking. You have given me a lot to think about. He said after a moment of silence. I will tell you some of what the kid has been doing, not all. That is his choice. Kyuubi warned. After being exiled, the Anbu tried to kill him. They failed as a friend of Naruto's. Mikahamaru Melwasu. Jiraiya interjected. Yes. Don't interrupt. Kyuubi admonished. Sorry. Jiraiya muttered. Mika saved Naruto and convinced him to come with him to Kwai's mountain, and yes, it really exists. Kyuubi said, seeing Jiraiya about to speak again. Kwai took them both in and trained them both. He cleaned up Naruto's chakra control problems and taijutsu. He then trained them both in kenjutsu. Over time Naruto became better. He learned from Kwai's library. Kyuubi smiled fondly. The kid had a real desire to learn, and with praise from Kwai, myself and Mika, Naruto flourished. The nearby fishing village helped. They had no notions or ideas about the kid. They saw him as a blonde youth who worked and trained hard. He helped around the village when Kwai would come down for his games, and him and Mika were popular with many. Kyuubi smiled seeing their looks of pain. Kwai then found a ritual that would separate me from Naruto, without killing the boy. We talked about it, and Naruto agreed. It didn't go quite as planned. As you can see, I don't have a physical body and no chakra. We heard about the incident with the bandits. Jiraiya said and Kyuubi nodded. The boys did extremely well. They killed the bandits and rescued the villagers. The leader managed to escape, but that happens with so many numbers against just 2. Kyuubi agreed. So, are they still on this mountain? Tsunade asked. Kukukuku. Heavens no. I took them as my baiti, or apprentices, and took them to the underverse. The shock and explosion of disbelief from the 2 Sannin had Kyuubi chuckling like mad in his mind, while his facial features remained indifferent. Yes, I took them to the underverse. There they are learning much and I planned on bringing them back over soon. They are both quick studies, fastest I saw anyone learn without having to steal it with a copy eye. Tsunade wanted to ask what kind of training, but figured the fox wouldn't tell her. What do you plan to do? She asked. As I said, I had thought of revenge. Twisting the kit to seek vengeance, but it sounds like the little Hyuga heir has been kicking and taking names. He chuckled. So she has a desire for the kit. He stroked his chin and smiled. Oh, the teasing I could give him with that knowledge. Kyuubi, what do you plan to do? And please, be serious. Tsunade asked again. Sigh, I will tell the kid about the fake signature and I will tell him that the council had been executed for treason. I won't tell him about the Hyuga girl. And yes, She's still Hyuga, despite what she may say. If you can send a message to your team, recall them. I am uncertain how long this stage in their training may take. We will come through Suna when we return. Naruto wishes to help the Gaara boy. Tsunade noted that, when he calls someone friend, he truly means it. The Uchiha and the Haruno broke their paths with him. Up until I spoke with you, I thought you had as well. He looked at Jiraiya. And young Mika will want words with you on how you trained Naruto. You and the Cyclops both will need to answer some hard truth questions. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. While Hinata got her pound of flesh Jiraiya, it sounds like I should prepare you and Kakashi a room in the hospital. Just promise me Melwasu won't use his blood manipulation on me. I saw the remains of the Anbu. Kyuubi sighed. That I can promise. He said. He didn't tell them Mika sacrificing his ability to release him. He didn't tell them the specific training that both boys were under. Just leave that as a surprise. Kyuubi thought. Meanwhile, Neji hated the desert, and he found the desert pressing down upon him. He looked over and saw Itachi was unaffected and he mentally cursed the Uchiha. What was I thinking agreeing to continue the search while we left Guy with Gaara? Neji wondered. The cage had been absolute that he would continue his own search as well. Lee had accepted the sand user's word and with 10-10 managed to convince Neji to move on. Not like that took much. I'm getting soft letting them both use those damn soft eyes and fake tears to manipulate me. So you betrayed your clan, killed your best friend and left Konoha all with the third's knowledge. 10-10 asked Itachi. Yes. I turned myself over to him moments after I ended my clan. Sasuke I placed in a trance, but sadly, my father thought ahead on that. What do you mean? The weapons mistress asked. My father placed a Sharingan enhanced genjutsu on Sasuke to make him hate not only myself, but subconsciously to have him move towards hating and killing Naruto eventually. My own Mangekyo Sharingan delayed it by forcing his hatred of me to double, while easing it away from Naruto. It seems to have worked. Neji snorted. You think Uchiha? Too clever for your own good. It worked so well that your little brother betrayed Konoha to seek power in order to destroy you and handed himself and your family's bloodline over to Orochimaru, who according to the bingo book isn't afraid of experimentation. Itachi was quiet for a moment. The day I killed my best friend, he had been ordered by my own father to kill me for refusing to kill Naruto. I'd told him I was one of those the Hokage trusted to protect the boy, and I found my one clan more often than not leading mobs to kill the boy. Some would get through, and Naruto would be slightly hurt, but I and a few others would fight and kill those that tried. My father ordered me to kill Naruto to prove my loyalty. Itachi snorted. My loyalty to the clan. I asked about the oaths I swore, and he said there would always be new Hokages. 10-10 and Lee looked shocked at what they were hearing. Neji had heard similar words from Hiyashi's mouth when he'd send branch family members to try and kill Naruto. After I killed Shisui, I returned to the Uchiha district, sealed the doors with the Devil's Gate seal and went to see my father. The clan members that saw me, attacked me. They all swore that Naruto and the Hokage would be dead by dawn. Lee looked outraged and 10-10 did as well. Neji had watched Hinata purge the Hyuga clan and knew it was not something to be seen lightly. I reached my father's home, he used my mother and brother as bargaining pieces. He swore he'd kill them as they'd made me weak. Itachi looked at Neji. They made me stronger than everyone ever thought. When father slit mother's throat I attacked. I held him in Mangekyo and once I released him, I killed him. Itachi looked over the horizon. I told Sasuke I left him alive because I didn't find him worth killing. I used my Sharingan to force that image into his mind, trying to burn out the orders my father had installed in him. At dawn I turned myself over to the Hokage. They continued the search looking in every direction as they continued to walk. The original plan had been for me to get in with Orochimaru. It failed as he tried to gain control of my Sharingan. However, I caught the attention of Akatsuki and Jiraiya convinced me to remain and learn about their goals. You were Lord Jiraiya's spy network. Neji said. Itachi smiled. Me and others, yes. Who better to find out about enemies than a spy in their own fold? Lee paused. But why did you attack Kakashi after the Oto Suna invasion? I defended myself. I didn't harm him, and I didn't harm Naruto. I read the report on that. Neji said. You used a woman to lure Jiraiya away. Itachi smiled and actually chuckled. I slipped a note on her while Kisame wasn't looking. It is how I would pass notes onto Jiraiya without being seen. He showed up just in time and Kisame fought Naruto a bit and was on the losing side. The only flaw had been the arrival of Sasuke. You broke his arm and left him locked in his mind. Neji said. Should have killed him. Ten muttered. Save us all the trouble now. I could have, but he is my little brother. Itachi agreed. It was a moment of kindness. I am human after all. Hey. Lee called and they saw he was on a dune. They caught up to him and froze. Suna was burning. Underverse. I'm so bored. Naruto said. Read a scroll. Micah chirped from his bed. Why did the fox have to go back to Konoha? Micah sighed. He wanted some answers. He didn't tell me why, only to make sure you stayed out of trouble till he gets back. Me. You're the one who had 6 of those 4-armed dungeon dwellers chasing you. Naruto countered. The Orog are fierce warriors. And it wasn't my fault. How was I to know she was their chieftain's daughter? I don't know, like maybe the numerous bodyguards. How about the tiara around her forehead? Naruto countered. So, you and Vieira? Micah asked, trying to change the subject. We are not talking about that. Naruto countered. All right. Micah agreed and smirked. What about Shiraiza? Naruto groaned. I told you nothing happened there. I woke up and she was in my bed. So you're saying something happened with that Vieira? Micah said and laughed as Naruto growled. Almost convincing, bro. Maybe in a couple more years it will be deeper and not sound like one of Chandrala's little ones. Naruto scowled. You know, I swear she likes being pregnant. He said after a bit. 4th time. Micah agreed. So, you think Shippo's going to admit his feelings for Evie? Micah snorted. Shippo don't know who he wants. I saw him chasing that wolf demon a week before we left. And then Evie the night before we went hunting. Hey, Micah, Naruto said, his voice hesitant. HN. Got him to continue. I've been thinking. You mentioned Hinata always watching me when we were younger. Micah smiled at this. Yeah, I told you about how she acted after I became a genin. Micah was enjoying this. And well, I was wondering, if we ever saw her, what should I say, like ask her out, or forget it. She's probably got a boyfriend or her clan has her in an arranged marriage. Naruto said, waving off his thought. Slow down, bro. Did she have a boyfriend when you last saw her? Naruto crossed his arms. Well, no, but it's been nearly 2 years. Besides, I remember Kiba always sniffing around her, and you're assuming. You know what that means. I making out of you and me. Naruto said and sighed again. I just been thinking about what the fox said, and I know we don't talk about it often, but hey, what are friends and brothers for? Micah asked. To annoy and tease and be bakas. Naruto countered. Those work. Micah agreed. But we're also here to listen and help. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment. The more I focus on my memories, I see Hinata a lot when I turn around. It's like, told you she was stalking you. She liked you. But why? Naruto asked. Micah shrugged. Have to ask her that. And if you don't ask her out, can I? No, you may not. I know where you've been. You're such a manwhore. Micah laughed. What can I say? I like being touched and touching. Manwhore. Naruto muttered playfully. Hey, Naruto. What? What if things don't work out back in our world? You think Master will let us come back here? Micah asked after a bit. You like it here, or is it a certain girl with green eyes that you like? Naruto teased. Shut up. I don't know her, or anything. Never stopped you before. I know Shippo was not pleased when you slept with his sister, and dude, she's 1,000 years old. But she still blushed like a schoolgirl and arrow manwhore. Naruto yelled, covering his head with a pillow. Micah laughed. You really need to open up a little, bro. Everyone's a pervert. It just rates on how far you take it. I haven't had in public. I don't read those orange books. I just like women and find them comfortable to be with. Naruto paused. Micah, when we were on Kwai's mountain, I read a book. It talked about dragons. I know. I'm scared too, bro. We both know we've changed. Hell, my eyes and hair weren't like this. I know. You used to have black hair and your eyes were brown when we were little. And you've changed as well. I think Master Q was right when he called me a Hanyu. I think when I reach a certain age I'll quit aging. His gold eyes locked on Naruto. And I think, just from the way he introduced you to the kitsune at the fox den, there is something. I think I'm his successor or something like it. Naruto said softly. The pair sat in silence, the topics they'd talked about weighing on their minds. Where the hell is that stupid fox? What the hell? Ten asked, stopping next to Neji while Itachi stood apart looking down. Who could do this, and this quickly? Deidara and Sasori. Itachi said. Who? Ten said. Akatsuki members. Both S-class nuke nin. Neji said. Guy sensei. Lee said and was going to race down, but Neji caught his arm. Neji-kun, let me go, please. Lee said, looking at his other lover. We need to do this right, Lee. We can't rush in. We don't know what or who is waiting. Neji said, and he felt bad denying Lee his request. The dark-haired boy saw Guy as the father he'd never had. Neji had confessed to Lee and Ten one night in their apartment that he too saw him as a surrogate father. It was killing him not knowing, but he had to think about the team and the mission. Search pattern Omega, he said after a moment. Uchiha take rear guard. Itachi nodded. He didn't know their formations and it would be best for him to protect their backs and remain out of their way. Neji. All four turned to see Hinata's team approaching. Hinata, he asked, surprised she was out of Konoha. What are you doing here? He asked. I was sent by Lady Tsunade to speak with Gaara. What are you doing here? She asked her cousin. Neji knew that it would have taken 2 days to get from Konoha to Suna, so the messages crossed. No time. Suna was attacked. We need to get down. Itachi. Kakashi asked and pulled his kunai. Die. Sakura roared, leaping at the elder Uchiha. For Sasuke-kun. Itachi didn't move, and while Hinata stopped Kakashi, Sakura was caught by her arm and held in the air. It's all your fault. The pink-haired girl wailed. Itachi shook his head and after removing the kunai from her hand released her with a shove back towards her team. He handed the kunai to Neji. Itachi is on our side. He's been under deep cover for years. Neji explained and Hinata nodded. We will talk, Itachi-san. Hinata said. Kakashi shivered at the tone in her voice, as did Sakura. Neji looked at his cousin and wondered if he could be in the room for that. Lee twitched and it drew Neji's focus. Right. He looked at Hinata. We're going in. Follow in AV formation with Itachi on point. We have 3 objectives here. To see if Guy-sensei is secure in the hospital still. Find the cage and protect him, and to eliminate any threats to the first 2 objectives. Hinata nodded. Hanabi and I will be behind Itachi-san, then Sakura and Kakashi. She looked at her sister. Keep your focus. Hanabi nodded. This was not what she expected for a simple delivery mission. They'd been working on the warehouse when Shizune came and handed Hinata a scroll. After reading it, she'd ordered them to prepare for a journey. Another team would continue the work on the warehouse. This was Hanabi's first time out of the village and she was nervous. Neji and his team went first. They entered the destroyed gates, noting that they looked like they'd been destroyed by a bombardment of fireballs and earth bombs. Neji's Byakugan searched and found nothing as they continued on. They made their way to the tower and saw it was gutted like a fish, the floors still standing were smoldering. Kami, what kind of power do they have? Ten muttered. Lee kept moving and they found the hospital untouched. Entering, they found the citizens and ninja receiving care. Nearly every free space was full. Oh, no, a nurse said, seeing them. Not more. No, we are coming back from patrol. What happened? Neji asked while Lee moved on to where they knew Guy's room was located. We don't know. Birds dove out of the sky and exploded. The cage fought off the 2 who claimed responsibility. His brother is in surgery right now. Konkuro. Neji asked. What happened to him? He took on Sasori. A voice said, and they turned to see Temari and Shikamaru approaching. Both were bandaged. Shikamaru sported some on his chest and arm. Temari sported bloody bandages on her left leg and cheek. They took Gaara, she said. They did some sort of seal that knocked him out. They took him west. Baki and I will accompany you. A woman says. Who are you? Sakura speaks up for the first time since her attack on Itachi. This is Chio. Temari says. I'll be going with you as well. Shikamaru sighs. Troublesome. Alright. I'm in, I suppose. The lazy Chunin says. Neji looks at Hinata. You are the ranking superior. He says lowly. Hinata looks at him. Very well. Shikamaru, you have experience as a leader of a pursuit team. The pineapple-shaped head lowers. Man, what a drag. He mutters. He quickly lays out the pursuit formation, Hanabi in the rear with Kakashi. Then Sakura and Tamari, Baki and Chio, Lee and Ten. Shikamaru then has the lead in a diamond formation with himself at the peak, then Hinata and Itachi and finally Neji at point. They set off immediately at top speeds. Konoha. So your plans? Tsunade asked. I plan on finishing as much of their training that I can do, then bring them back. Kyuubi said with a Gaelic shrug. Beyond that, I will let them decide. Tsunade had so many questions, but she didn't know if the Fox Lord would answer her. Tell me, Hokage, will Naruto be welcomed back? Tsunade wished she hadn't given up drinking. By a lot of the younger generation, yes. By some of the Jonin and in nearly all the Chunin, yes. Tsunade didn't inform him of Hinata's purge of the older generation. I will inform the kid of most of what we talked about. Now the hour grows long, and I must return, otherwise I fear Bai will get into mischief that even rivals the trouble a fox can get into. With that he vanished by simply fading away as if he'd never been there. I don't like this. Jiraiya said. Minato made that seal to contain the Kyuubi. He shouldn't be free. Do you think he's influenced Naruto against Konoha? No. Tsunade said without hesitation. Naruto won't betray Konoha, like Konoha has betrayed him. It's not in his nature. He can't not care. She paused then continued. He might be a bit rude and sarcastic when he comes back, but in time he will forgive, and besides, she smirked at her former teammate, he's going to be Hokage someday. Underverse. This is not a good idea. Micah said as they finished packing the gear they'd bought. I'm bored. We can train a bit. Naruto, we were supposed to take it easy, and just get prepared for the journey. Micah said. Well, a quick spar would prepare. Besides, I need to get used to this new sword before we have to fight any fiends. Naruto pleaded holding up his new sword. Micah shook his head. The katana was covered with runes. Micah pointed out that it could be cursed, but Naruto wanted it. I really think we should wait for Master Q. Those runes could be bad news. Oh come on. Don't be such a worrywart. Besides, look at the blade, it has that orange tinge to it, it looks so cool. Micah shook his head. I thought we broke you of that bad habit of liking anything shiny and or orange. Naruto laughed, then gave him the puppy dog eyes. Gah, not that look. Damn it Naruto. Micah gave in and grabbed his Hanzo sword. Alright, fine. A short spar. But if anything goes wrong. What could possibly go wrong? Naruto asked. What can go wrong, he says. Micah muttered looking at the 9-foot-tall fiend. A hunting party of lizard men surrounded them and Naruto looked at him sheepishly. How was I supposed to know? You cursed us. You know better than to ask that question, and I was a fool to agree to spar after you said it. Micah growled. The Hanzo sword in his hand seemed to actually hum in anticipation. Particles of dirt were rising in the air as Micah's wind shield was slowly spiraling about him. You can't believe that. Hell, that's like saying I wish a beautiful woman would drop in and save us. Both boys jumped when an arrow slammed into the lead lizard man's neck. It made a gurgling sound and toppled backwards with a loud thud. They looked at where it had come from and saw Nami standing atop the outpost, her bow drawn and another arrow notched. I wish a million Ryo would fall from the sky. Naruto said looking up. Alas, no luck there as it continued to be just clear sky. Nice try anyways. Micah said and lunged. The Hanzo blade slid through the armor like a hot knife in butter. Naruto's own sword was slicing apart lizard hide and armor with a matching ease. Several more arrows flew and while one lizard man got a shield in the way and held a spear, another wasn't as lucky as 2 arrows caught it first in the shoulder spinning it about and then right between the eyes. She's good. Micah said as his wind lashed out and snapped the neck of a lizard man while the Hanzo sword in his hands decapitated another. Hey, where'd they all go? Naruto asked as he sliced another lizard man across the chest. There. Micah said and watched as a pair of them seemed to burrow into the ground. Damn it. Come back here you walking luggage. I'm not done yet. Naruto said. Micah turned and saw Nami was gone as well. Huh. He muttered. What in the name of Kami's wings is going on here? Oh. Hey master. Naruto said scratching his head with his free hand while looking at the shade with a sly grin. How's your day? They're in that cave, Neji informed Shikamaru and Hinata. The group had found the trail easily, the former Akatsuki members weren't even trying to hide their trail. They're not afraid, Shikamaru muttered. Would you be if you could level a whole village? Chio said. The old woman had been short-tempered and snappish the whole time since they left Suna. Tamari had just ignored her as had Baki. How do you want to do this? Kakashi asked. He actually liked not being in charge. We'll go in waves, Shikamaru said using a kunai to draw it out in the sand. Team 9 will go in first with Itachi. Hinata's team will be in next after Team 9 has engaged the Akatsuki. Shikamaru said drawing in the sand some more. I'll be with them. He continued. Team Suna will be last. I want to save my brother. Tamari voiced. And you can. But wait until we have them engaged. Suggestion. Itachi said. Replace the Haruno with Baki, and the youngest Hyuga with Tamari. Sakura looked enraged. Why? Shikamaru asked. It would be wise to have a Byakugan user in each group since we have 3 of them. Also Baki and Tamari are more experienced. Finally, the Haruno girl has been useless in nearly every fight and would be better used as medic and bodyguard for Chio-sama. Shikamaru weighed the information and nodded. Agreed. Baki prepared his weapons and Tamari smiled thinking she'd be getting revenge for Konkuro and rescue Gaara. What? You're listening to him? Sakura said in disbelief. Sasuke would have. You will not mention that name again, Haruno. Shikamaru said before Hinata said anything. No one here cares about your delusions with the traitor. Lady Tsunade's orders are he is to be killed on sight. No. Sakura said in disbelief. Sakura. Hinata said in a cold, calm voice that Tamari thought would have made Gaara of old proud. You will do as you're told. You fail and I will kill you where you stand. Chio nodded at the commanding tone in the younger woman's voice, she just wished that they'd not left the pink-haired butt pain with her. Go. Hinata said. Deidara looked on as the hired sorcerer performed the ritual to draw the tailed demon out. Sasori sat on the other side of the cave, his eyes closed. Ever since Pain-sama left we've all lost power. The ring crumbled and turned to dust. The Nuke Nin thought. How much longer? He asked watching as the sorcerer made markings on the cave floor. Not long. It's nearly complete. The robed man said, his dark eyes watching Gaara for signs of movement. How long will that spell last? Deidara asked. Till I release it. I need to concentrate. Deidara sighed. He hated waiting. He looked up in time to see 3 nins and a very familiar figure enter the front of the cave. Itachi. Sasori was in motion, his puppets already going to attack. The former Suna nin was controlling 9 of them at once. Protect the sorcerer. He must complete the ritual. He said. Deidara sneered seeing the leaf symbol. Ah. So went crawling back to your former masters, Itachi. Shame. We might have shared Shukaku with you. He used his ability and lobbed several clay bombs at the nin while laughing like mad. Z pattern. Neji ordered and Lee and Ten moved and avoided the explosives. I will deal with Deidara. Itachi said moving off to fight the former Iwa nin. So it's down to us now, hey Uchiha. Deidara said as his hands were forming more explosives. You will die just as easily as Kisame. Itachi said coldly. Across the cavern, Team 9 was having trouble with the puppet master as he blocked them from reaching the sorcerer. Lee's fists were effective as were Neji's Juken strikes. Tenten's claws were slicing up the puppets but the 3 noticed that they were self-repairing the damage. We need to hurry, she said, her Pantera taking one of the limbs off the faceless puppet's arms. Lee's hurricane kick sent several puppets crashing. Oh no you don't boy. Sasori said and 3 more puppets converged on Lee. Neji was surrounded by 4 and Ten was fighting 3 as well. The second team entered the cave to see Itachi dodging explosive clay birds from Deidara and Team 9 fighting hard against the puppet troops of Sasori. Tamari saw her brother in a strange circle and her eyes narrowed seeing the sorcerer chanting and runes lighting up as he finished and moved on to the next rune. Baki stepped in and unfortunately he stepped on one of Deidara's traps before Hinata could do anything. He was blown back, his left leg gone from just above the knee down. Hold, Shikamaru said. Hinata. Activating her Byakugan she scanned the cave. The whole place is rigged. She said. Troublesome. Shikamaru said. Didn't figure they'd rig their own place while in it. Gaara. Tamari yelled and tried to rush in, but Kakashi grabbed her arm. Wait. You rush in you'll end up like him. he said, gesturing towards where Baki lay. The Suna Nin gritted her teeth. Tell the slug to hurry up then. Hinata was first in formation with Shikamaru marking the areas she pointed at with Senbon needles. Hurry up. Tamari growled. You're welcome to rush in and loose a limb or your life. We don't know if the others are tied together or if they go off one at a time. Shikamaru said. Kakashi, signal the others to hold off. The Chunin said as he tossed another needle. Kakashi summoned a nin dog and sent it back out with a message for the last group. Tamari in the middle, Kakashi come last. Hinata paused. What is it? Shikamaru asked. There are clay bombs burrowing under here. They keep moving, she said. So that's how Team 9 missed them. The Nara genius muttered. Can you see if any of the explosives are linked? Not that I can see. Hinata admitted. We leap from here, Shikamaru said. Kakashi will go first. We'll leapfrog with Hinata, then Tamari, then me. Hinata will keep an eye on the bombs. If they move, warn us. Kakashi landed first. Watch your left, a foot away. Hinata warned. She leapt and Kakashi caught her. She looked on and leapt again and landed. Clear here. Tamari leapt and leapt again, joining her. Shikamaru landed and leapt and then Kakashi followed. They repeated with Hinata telling Kakashi where to land and then leaping herself. Shikamaru was in the air when Hinata saw one of the burrowing bomb moving with him. Shikamaru. Kakashi launched a kunai at the same time the burrowing bomb broke the surface and Shikamaru was on his descent. Underverse. Naruto sulked as Q ranted at him and Mika about irresponsible behavior. And you? Q said, rounding on Mika. I told you to stay out of trouble, and letting him have a rune sword. Do you even know what that could do? Q floated back and forth and both boys figured if he'd been solid there would be rut in the floor of their room right now. We just were doing some light sparring. Naruto said in defense. Those lizard guys just came out of nowhere. I told you to remain inside. Q roared. I didn't want you to encounter any of the hunters or even fiends without me around to either negotiate or tell you how to get past them. We kicked their asses. Naruto said, puffing up. You got lucky. If that girl hadn't come to bail her boyfriend here out, you'd have been taken down. Not her boyfriend. Mika said softly. He was subdued. He wasn't happy that Q was disappointed in them. He felt like he'd let their master down and hadn't followed his orders. Yet she's following you, Q said. Fine, since you're both so full of energy, then finish packing, we're leaving. The Okage are not known to give up. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. Q moved further on. Be ready in 5 minutes. I need to warn the outpost owner about the Okage so he can prepare the defenses. Couldn't we stay and help? Naruto asked. No, we have a lot to do, and we're running out of time. Q said. He drifted to the door, and paused. And we need to talk tonight. It's about Konohagakure. What? Hey, come back here, stupid fox. Naruto stopped as Mika's hand wrapped around his bicep. He said tonight, Naruto. The silver-haired teen said. Yeah, but, you can't just wait till then after saying something like that. Naruto argued. He can and did. He is our master now, Naruto. You've trusted him this far. I'm sure it can wait. Naruto pouted as he gathered their storage scrolls and slid them into their slots inside his jacket. Probably wants to talk about leveling the place. Naruto muttered. A small part of him wanted to, badly for the past and how they always treated them. But the larger part of him wanted to see his friends, and he wanted to see Ba-chan. Talk about a glutton for punishment. I just keep getting kicked and I want more of it. The blonde thought, picking up his new sword. Did the old fox say if I could use this or not? I sort of zone out during his lecture. Mika sighed. Naruto. He muttered. Shaking his head, he was glad there was some things about the blonde that never changed. You can use it, but remember you can't use chakra. The runes will absorb it. We were lucky you didn't use any while wielding it earlier. Naruto slid the sheath over his shoulder and sighed. The store owner refused to buy it back and didn't have another sword as a group of hunters had just cleaned him out. Naruto saw Mika was slipping on a fur cloak and hood. Why not just warmer jacket? The blonde asked, slipping his own fur-lined coat on over his jacket. Don't forget your gloves. Frostbite will suck big time. Naruto mumbled. Well, not all of us can use wind to keep warm. True, but also Vunla helps. Naruto groaned, remembering one of the lessons Q had taught them on using Vunla to resist heat or cold. You suck. Naruto muttered and Micah laughed as he slipped out the door missing the tossed pillow. Naruto kicked it back to the room as he left and looked up at the sky. Half the day was over. Get a move on, Kit. We have miles to go and it gets even colder on the tundra at night. Hugh said as he drifted off. Micah and Naruto leaping after him, their Vunla-powered leaps carrying them further than chakra-powered ones could. The cave. It has begun. The sorcerer arched his back as the runes slithered across the cave floor and seemed to bind Gaara. The combatants stopped as a shadowy figure rose up from Gaara, who woke screaming in pain, as if his very soul was being dragged from him. Not good, Shikamaru said from where he was balancing on the ring of the kunai that was embedded in the rock. Shikamaru sighed seeing the burrow bomb slide back under the ground, and the young Chunin leapt and landed next to Kakashi. Thanks, he said. No problem. Shikamaru looked to the circle and shook his head. We don't have time for this. But there are 2 man of those burrowing bombs between us and there. Hinata said, her Byakugan scanning the cave. Enough of this. Tamari said and leapt into the air and using her fan floated over the moving minefield. She landed next to the sorcerer and with a swipe of her fan sending him flying into the wall where he hit one of the bombs and was sent flying back towards Tamari, his back smoking. Tamari saw him coming and swung her battle fan and he was slammed into the ground by a downward swipe. Asshole. What did you do to my brother? She snarled at the battered and bleeding sorcerer. Gaara's howl of pain filled the cavern and the 2 battles resumed. Kami, take you. Ten yelled as she shredded another puppet. Lee and Neji were fighting back to back and Ten cursed at being separated from the boys by the damned puppets. Her Pantera were great for up close, but she was getting fed up as in close fighting was still not her favorite form of combat. Leaping into the air she pulled 2 scrolls from her waist and looked at the puppet master. This ends now, she said, and started spinning with blades of all shapes and sizes exited the scrolls into her hands and were fired rapidly. Shuriken, kunai, swords, scythes, chakram, dagger darts, spears all flew and all aimed at Sasori. Yes. Ten exclaims as her aim is true and Sasori becomes a mass of blades. She lands again and barely avoids a puppet's attack. This shouldn't be, she said, avoiding another attack. Ten. Lee yells. Neji performs another cadence spin and scatters the puppets. The pair reunite with Ten. How can this be? She asked. He's perforated with weapons. Neji's eyes studied the puppet master. Something is off. Lee's fist connected with another puppet. And switch over to the final side of the cavern where Deidara is taunting Itachi. What's the matter, Uchiha? Can't use that pathetic Kekkei Genkai of yours. Pain and the others always praised you as a prodigy. You're just a spoiled leaf nin is all. Several more explosions rang out and Itachi looked unconcerned. You still talk too much. Itachi said and Deidara screamed as a kunai buried up to the handle on his left thigh. Ag hhhhh. You bastard Uchiha. Itachi smiled at that. With who my father was, it could be. He said with a slight shrug. If any of the Leaf Nins had heard this they would wonder if Itachi had gotten all the emotions in the Uchiha clan, as he was more emotional than Sasuke, and they'd only known Itachi a short time. Deidara, you bore me. I'll kill you and you will know you failed your master. Sasori-sama will resurrect me. Deidara said with a grin. He won't let you win, Uchiha. You betrayed the Akatsuki before the rings destroyed. We all saw you murder Tobi. Black flames formed in Itachi's palm. That was an abomination. He was an Uchiha that wasn't. He was Pain's toy. Like many of you. Itachi's left hand and right hand formed a sphere shape and black flames spiraled fast as they formed. Rest in peace, Deidara. Hell has waited your coming for some time. The black flame fireball was launched and Deidara barely had a chance to scream as his body was eaten by the black flames, bones and all leaving a smoldering pile of blackened ash. Chio looked at the cave and shaking her head moved towards it. Anyo. Chio-san, but we were ordered to wait here. Hanabi said to the Suna Nin. Do as you please, girl. I have things that need to be settled and I can't do it out here watching a love-sick school girl gripe about how she's being treated. Hanabi looked at Sakura, who she'd knocked out with a light Juken strike. The pink-haired girl had been pacing and going on and on about how things would have been had her Sasuke-kun been in charge. Hanabi had finally had enough, and when Sakura mentioned how she was sure it was all Naruto's fault and that he probably had Orochimaru kidnap Sasuke-kun, well, Hanabi had enough. You will not insult the man my sister loves. And when he comes back and given time accepts her, I will crush any that think about upsetting my sister again. The head of the Hyuga family scowled at the pink-haired girl. We can't leave her here, she said. Chio scowled and pulled out a small vial and snapped the wax seal. Hold that under her nose. Sakura woke moments later and looked about. Let's go, Haruno. Chio-san wishes to settle some personal debts. Sakura found she was unable to speak and Hanabi smirked. That pale-eyed whore. When Sasuke-kun hears about this. I know. Can you believe the arrogance of the Hyuga? She thinks just because her clan was decimated and she's a clan leader she can get away with all of this. Inner Sakura agreed. She followed and they'd just entered the cave as Itachi's fire turned Deidara to ash. Chio walked past Baki who was moaning the loss of his leg. Hanabi paused and with a Juken strike knocked him out. It's for his own good. He was in too much pain. Hanabi followed Chio who was using a chakra pulse to shut down the mines. The young Hyuga was watching with her Byakugan and thought it was something to look into when they got back to Konoha. Chio waded through the puppets. Baka. She snarled and struck the pincushion that was Sasori. A loud crack filled the cavern and Team 9 realized that the puppets ceased moving. They looked at the old woman in shock. Get out of that stupid doll, boy, she said, smacking it again, and another crack appeared. Knock knock, she said with a third blow, and all the weapons that had been embedded in the form of Sasori popped out like shot from a cannon. Ah! Tamari was leaning on her fan which was resting on the neck of the sorcerer. She didn't care about the others, she didn't care if they all wiped each other out. What she cared about was her brother who had changed since his loss to Uzumaki Naruto during the invasion. She liked her brother, she cared for her brother. I'll be damned if some third-rate dark wizard with delusions of grandeur will take him away from me. How do I stop it? She hissed. The man's dark eyes were bugging out of his skull as he struggled to breath. I can't hear you, bastard. Remove runes. The man gasped. Tamari looked at the glowing runes and with a nod she grabbed him by his robes and dragged him over the circle and used his body to smear a rune. No. He screamed in pain as it backfired upon him. The explosion rocked the cave at the same time Sasori was shown to be inside the body of his doll, his body shrunken and weak. Hello, grandchild, Chio said as her fist slammed into the pale face of her own flesh and blood. Tamari looked at her brother who seemed to be dead. She stepped on the sorcerer's body which was twitching as life left it from the backfired spell rebounding on him. Gaara, she asked, dropping to her knees. Come on. You better be alive or I'm going to kill you, she said, feeling for a pulse. You can't die on me, little brother. You can't leave me with Konkuro. Who's going to threaten Shikamaru? Mumbler isn't right for you. Gaara, Tamari said, hugging him as his eyes fluttered open. You're alive, she said, tears coming to her eyes in relief. Something's not right, Gaara said weakly, his voice sounding exhausted. Chio, Tamari called out. Get over here. Over by Sasori's smashed body, Chio looked up from pulping the puppet master and sighed. This will have to do, she muttered, and she slammed her fist once more down into the shattered skull of what had been her grandson hiding in the puppet he made that had looked like him. Chio walked away, leaving the Konoha nin to deal with their injuries. Hinata and Hanabi with Kakashi bandaged up Team 9, Hinata using antitoxins, seeing some of the puppets were coated with poisons. Sakura meanwhile followed Chio. She was in awe of the old woman's abilities, and had seen her bag with scrolls while they'd waited earlier. If I can learn from there, I'm sure I can impress Sasuke-kun, she thought. Chio ignored her pink-haired shadow and checked on the cage. She performed several medical jutsus and looked at Tamari. He's dying, she said. What? Why? The blonde Kunoichi asked. The demon was removed. The fact he's still alive is his will alone, Chio said. You're a great healer. Second to Tsunade. Do something, Tamari demanded. Tamari, Gaara said weakly. No. You can't die. You're supposed to be here to chase off my boyfriend. You're supposed to run Suna. What about Uzumaki? You haven't seen him yet. Gaara's eyes became unfocused. Tell Naruto, he was right. And with that, Gaara of the desert died. Underverse. Two figures in a shade were moving across the frozen tundra, the wind whipping blue snow and ice at high speeds. One figure stopped after landing after a long leap. The hooded head seemed to one side, the ice-covered goggles looked up at the sky. Naruto. Micah yelled from ahead. Hugh stopped as well, unaffected by the wind and cold. Naruto hadn't moved. Hugh drifted back. Kit, did you feel that? Naruto asked, his voice being weakened by the freezing winds. Hugh sighed. Something bad has happened. It's like, someone precious screamed and then was silenced. Naruto doubled over, pain ripping through his chest. Ah, Micah. Hugh yelled and the wind user was there with a shunshin. He knelt next to the still screaming Naruto. Master, what can I do? Micah asked and saw that the great Kyuubi no Kitsune had vanished as well. Master. The howling wind was one of the first sounds he heard upon awakening. The sound of a fire was the next thing. With a groan he opened his eyes. Thank Kami. Naruto looked over and saw Micah sitting beside him. Gold eyes looking at him in concern. What happened? Naruto asked, his mouth and throat feeling dry as if he'd slept in the Suna sun. I don't know. You stopped and screamed and passed out. Master Q vanished and I didn't know what to do, so I set up the shelter and got a fire going. Naruto accepted the water bottle and drank nearly the whole thing. I feel like I did after that time Sasuke rammed the Chidori through my chest. Well, I didn't know many medical jutsu, but the ones I did know you were fine, I couldn't find anything wrong. Micah said using his wind to feed the fire. I wonder what happened to Master Q. Naruto had to agree with Micah's question. And why did he feel like something had been taken, but he felt it was alright. Sunagaker. I can't believe that old woman used a forbidden technique to resurrect Gaara. Lee said to Ten. Flashback. Gaara. Tamari screamed and the others turned. Chio looked on. She'd watched the siblings since they were born, and since the failed invasion there was a change. She'd seen the biggest change in the Jinchuriki the most and it confused her. She watched as he talked with his siblings and even showed patience with other villagers. Tamari was leaning against her younger brother's chest sobbing. No, he kept repeating over and over. The demon is gone. Chio said to herself. Her medical scans showed that the Tenku demon Shukaku was gone. With the Akatsuki members dead and the sorcerer as well, there had been nowhere for the demon's soul to go and it evaporated back to where demon souls rested. The old woman looked at the dead cage, then over to the remains of her grandson and made a decision. Gaara has been a good and fair ruler since he came back. Suna needs him. She thought, pulling out a scroll and opening it. She ignored the others behind her and focused on her task. Pulling out a kunai, she carved the symbols on her palms, first the left, then the right. Step back, girlie. She ordered Tamari and she placed her left hand over Gaara's heart and her right hand on his forehead. Elim Iba draw Wilia DCUV draw Untfun MT. She intoned. Itachi and the others were standing back while the old woman chanted in a language none of them understood. Fet. Kinte UV draw Hunder. Isisa Draa. A figure seemingly composed of air appeared and took up a position near Gaara's head. Fidin. Kinte UV draw Aycd. Isisa Draa. Chio intoned and a being of water seemed to form and take up a position near Gaara's arm. What is she doing? Lee asked in a subdued voice. No clue. Ten said as she watched while Kakashi wrapped her wounds. Neji was watching, his eyes taking it all in, while Hinata and Hanabi were checking on Baki and wrapping his wounds for travel. Ayndr. Kinte UV draw Facd. Isisa Draa. Chio intoned and a rock-like creature rose up from the floor and took up a position by Gaara's other arm. She is calling on the elements of some kind. Neji said. But she's pushing a lot of chakra into the cage's body as well. Vena. Kinte UV draw Queeter. Epakalar Draa. She intoned and a spark and soon a dancing flame appeared at Gaara's feet. Kinte HC UV draw Amasa DC. Epakalar Draa. Oklarika so mevabunla vun dryd uv Gaara sabuku. Siga drek dnyta uv so ufhvnaa fem. Silver light could be seen glowing from under her hands. So p mut vun rek p mut, so miva vun rek miva. Yc so fem, cusyo ed pa. The elements that had been summoned at this time were floating in the air and circling Gaara's body. As they drifted closer and closer, those watching could see the sand under him begin to shift. When Chio finished her incantation, there was a flash and she slumped backwards. The elements slammed into Gaara. The ground shook and the air seemed to whip around. The moisture in the air seemed to be condensing on the cave walls, and several of the nearby rocks actually burned. The wind howled through the cave, and those watching were forced to shield their eyes as sand spun around Gaara's body. They watched as it lifted off the ground, and Chio's body seemed to be absorbed into the cave floor. The watching Nin saw that Deidara's ashes and all the remains of Sasori and his puppets were pulled into the earth as well. Tamari watched as she used her fan as a shield from the wind, her eyes watching her youngest brother's body. A blue light was circling above, and then, like a bird of prey attacking, it swooped in and slammed into Gaara's body. All there saw his eyes open, and he silently screamed. The sand in the cave rushed to him and formed a cocoon around him, slowly lowering to the ground. End flashback. Tamari looked in the hospital room where Gaara was sitting, glaring at the doctors who wanted to perform tests. "Excuse me, Lee. I need to save an idiot doctor from getting a sand enema," the fan user said, walking away from the Leaf Nin, who turned as Ten put an arm around his waist and Neji an arm over his shoulders, Lee between them. "Let's go check on Guy." Sakura watched them go. She clutched the scrolls she'd stolen to her under her shirt. She'd swiped Chio's scrolls while everyone was rushing to check on the cage. Just another demon for Sasuke-kun to kill when he comes back to me," the pink-haired genin thought as she hurried back to the hotel. She'd avoided her teammates since the cave and was trying to figure out how to make this work to her advantage. Sakura was walking the streets when a gloved hand closed over her mouth and pulled her into an alley. "Hello, Haruno. We need to talk." Underverse. Micah had gone out and hunted, managing to capture a pair of tundra rabbits. Naruto looked at the dog-sized rabbits and shook his head as his silver-haired brother cooked some of the meat and smoked the rest. "You think the fox will be back?" Micah shrugged. "Not sure. Stop asking. It's driving me crazy." Naruto sipped the broth Micah had made by soaking the rabbit bones and the fat. The wind user wasted nothing of what he hunted. Naruto made a face at some of the things he'd seen Micah make in the last 2 years. He fried up the innards, and once he'd seen Micah drink the juice from a desert snake and then eat the eyeball. "How's the rabbits coming?" he asked. "Nearly done," Micah said calmly. "Better than bug stew," Naruto muttered, remembering the beetles and other insects the dragon Hanyu had cooked with some noodles and veggies. Naruto had eaten 4 bowls before Micah had told him what was in the stew. "You liked it till you found out what was in it," Micah said, turning some of the meat over. "Where is that damned fox?" Naruto muttered. He felt better now, but something was off. "If this is his idea of a joke, I don't like it," the blonde muttered. "I don't think it was." He looked really worried. Micah said, tasting his stew he was making as well. Micah had learned how to heat stones to cook on them with chakra, and he'd found a way to boil as if it was a stone top. "You're getting better at that," Naruto said, changing the subject and watching his friend and brother in all ways that mattered between them. "Yeah, well, I spent time with the vixens on those nights you were out playing with the kits." Uncle Naruto was entertaining the children. Micah said playfully. "Shut up. It was fun." "I'm sure it was," Micah said. "But the women decided I needed to know my way around a kitchen that didn't involve something with noodles." Both shuddered at that. The vixens had tried for months to get the boys off their ramen addictions, but it failed as a ramen stand opened up in Lowtown. "Wonder how Vivi's doing." Naruto thought suddenly of the little ramen chef. "Missing us probably," Micah answered. "I think we got some of the Lowtowners hooked on it, so he should be staying in business at least." "Hey, Mikahamaru, are you scared of what the tests will be once we reach wherever Q wants us to go?" Naruto asked. When they were alone, the boys talked about what was on their mind. Even if they changed subjects rapidly, they talked freely, and it was a comfort to both that they'd had when they were a lot younger before the academy and Micah leaving, and their times on the streets of Konohagakure. "Terrified and excited," Micah said, tasting the stew and adding some herbs to it for seasoning. "Me too," Naruto admitted. His hand lashed out to steal a piece of the cooking rabbit when his hand was slapped. "Hey, no fair using your wind to smack me, I'm in a delicate way." The blonde pouted and Micah snorted, and they both laughed. "Wonder what the fox wanted to tell me about." Naruto sighed aloud. Micah mentally banged his head off the wall and cursed Naruto's inability to be patient. He wouldn't admit it out loud, but he was curious as to what the fox had learned back in their own realm. Both sat staring into the fire as the tundra rabbits roasted and the stew cooked on the heated rocks. Morning came and both boys were still alone. Well, I think we should continue to head in the direction he had us going in. Naruto said over their breakfast rations. But what if he appears here and we're gone? Micah asks. How long can we sit here, Micah? How long before we have to turn back and return to Solit anew? Naruto asked, staring into the fire. Well, with rations and if we hunted as well, months really. Micah said. Naruto looked at him. I smoked half the rabbits and we ate what was left of the stew for breakfast. We have enough rations of over a month, and with hunting really, indefinitely actually. Micah admitted. Well, let's just travel in a straight line and see what happens. Naruto said. Micah nodded finally and packed up their supplies. Once outside the shelter, they collapsed it back into its storage scroll. Wrapped in their snow gear once more, they leapt, the wind and snow their only current companions. From a distance, a pair of emerald green eyes watched them. Another figure moved up, and the first one holding the bow made a gesture, and soon the howl of wolves filled the sky and the sleds were moving, each pulled by a team of tundra wolves. For 3 days they traveled over ice and snow. They would travel from sunup to sunset and sleep in the shelter. On the 4th day, Naruto paused. What? Micah asked, stopping next to him. Do you feel that? Naruto asked, his goggle-covered eyes on the distance. You mean the ones that have been following us? Micah asked. No, they're ahead. Naruto pointed to the rock formation ahead that was covered with layers of ice. Micah reached out with his Vunla-enhanced senses and shook his head. He wasn't as strong as Naruto with it, and while he could enhance his abilities and with effort Vunla lightning, Naruto was truly mastering the use of it, and being on the wilds of the tundra seemed to deepen the blonde's connection. Naruto and Micah looked at the snow and ice-covered rock formation. What do you think? The blonde asked. I think we should wait for Master Q to reappear. We don't know what could be there, and it would be wiser to wait for him. For all we know, it could be a giant snake den in there. Micah said. Naruto sighed and nodded. We'll set up the shelter over there. The blonde pointed to another outcropping of rocks. We can use the rocks to shelter the tent from the elements. Micah nodded. He pulled the scroll that held the shelter, and after smearing a bit of blood on the seal, the shelter was once more set up and the silver-haired wind user slipped inside. Naruto sighed. It was his turn to hunt, but he was getting sick of tundra rabbits. He desperately wanted ramen, but they were in the middle of nowhere and he didn't see an Ikikaru ramen stand anywhere. Hey, I'm going to see if I can catch some dinner. He said, passing the shelter. The dome-shaped tent was larger than the simple tents he remembered having when he was a genin for Konoha, and he liked it better. With a modified seal, you could have it set up in second and stored in a scroll. Micah stuck his head out. Stay away from that rock formation. He warned. I wasn't. Naruto tried to argue, but Micah just gave him an even look with his golden eyes. Fine. Naruto huffed and went off in the opposite direction. Micah stuck his head back into the shelter. He had gotten the small fire started and was melting snow for cooking water. I know him. He'd have charged in there and we'd be in trouble. The silver-haired teen muttered. Where the hell are you, master? Suna. Hello, Haruno. Sakura spun about and saw a figure standing further back in the alley. Lord Danzo. She said, relaxing. Mother said you would be in touch. She's right. The silver-armed man said. The Hokage continues to waste effort on Uzumaki. She's put me on a squad with Hitaki and the 2 Hyuga whores. All 3 are defending him, and Hokage has injured Nins for speaking out against Naruto since you've been gone, my lord. Danzo nodded. What transpired on this recent mission? He asked. Sakura told him of the Akatsuki removing Shukaku from Gaara, of the death of Chio. Study those scrolls very carefully, they might be of use. Danzo said. Sakura nodded, eager to please the man who saved her mother from poverty. Lord Danzo, how is Sasuke-kun? She asked, eager to hear news of her crush. Danzo paused before responding. Sasuke is working to perfect his Sharingan. When he is ready, we will move and take Konoha back from the demon lovers and the weak. Will you tell Sasuke I am getting stronger for him? She asked. Of course, Sakura. Remember to use the root members I have in Konoha still to pass on messages. Of course, my lord. I do all this so the day comes I will be married to Sasuke like you promised, and Konoha will be yours, like my father promised all those years ago. The pink-haired girl smiled. Then her whole stance changed, as did the color of her eyes. They became a sickly yellow-green. It is so hard to play weaker than I am. I've had to allow that Hyuga whore strike me and play the simpering twit. Danzo smiled. You have been one of my operatives for years, Sakura. Your training and conditioning has allowed you to switch personalities as needed. The famed Haruno inner persona has helped you gather intel and be one of my best spies since your academy days. He sighed. I just don't understand your fixation with the Uchiha. While breeding would be fine, your fascination with him is some concern. Sakura smirked. It wasn't a friendly smirk either. I believe Sasuke-kun can be the best ninja in the world. Once his Sharingan is fully developed. I don't need a husband who talks, but he will bring me fame and fortune. After he's been used for breeding, you can kill him and I will raise the children in the ways you've shown my family since before I was born, Lord Danzo. She said with a bow. Danzo shook his head. A dangerous game we are all playing, with too many wild cards on the table. Orochimaru isn't concerned with the Kyuubi container, and I. Sakura. Danzo stepped back into the shadows, seeing the young Nara genius with the Cage's sister. Oh, Shikamaru. There you are. I got lost and turned around, Sakura said, trying to lie her way out. Save it, Haruno. Sakura looked up and saw Hanabi with Kakashi standing on the building on either side of the alley looking down. Sakura snarled and, sensing danger, tossed several smoke bombs down and then threw a couple explosive tags down. She slipped away with Danzo. Hanabi managed to keep the others from crossing the tags, and the time it took allowed the pair to escape. Damn that woman. I knew something was up when I saw her hovering around Shio-san when she died. Tamari snarled. And now Danzo and Orochimaru have the techniques she had written in her clan scrolls. Shikamaru said. How troublesome. Sakura managed to gather them up and make sure the blood seals never connected. Those are some dangerous rituals that just got into enemy hands. Kakashi said, landing next to the others. So what are we going to do? Hanabi asked. She had noticed Sakura missing and had broken off with Kakashi. Shikamaru and Tamari had followed them and they heard the talks between Danzo and their pink-haired traitorous teammate. Team 9 will remain on their patrols until they hear otherwise from the Hokage. Kakashi said. We need to tell Lady Hinata what just happened. I'm sure we'll be taking Guy back to Konoha with us. Shikamaru sighed. And it looks like I will be heading back sooner as well. We'll need to change the defenses again, and start combing the population for route operatives. Not to mention inform the Hokage about the situation with Akatsuki and what happened here. The Nara prodigy looked at Tamari. I need to stay here until Gaara and Kankuro are back on their feet. She said reluctantly. The last year with Shikamaru had been a mental battle and she found it fun. His mental abilities held qualities she'd come to enjoy. Hanabi sighed. Hinata will blame herself for allowing Sakura to live. The thought of the Haruno clan with a Kekai Genkai is frightening. Kakashi said. Their inner persona seems able to shield them. We should have realized it back during the Chunin exams a couple years back. How she managed to throw off Ino's mental possession. Shikamaru said, a thoughtful look on his face. Kakashi nodded. Back then we chalked it up to Naruto's cheering her on and her hot temper, and I never bothered to look into it. It's troubling how much effort Danzo's gone into to undermine the Hokage and gain control of the Uchiha. It's not only the Uchiha that Danzo's tried to get control over. Kakashi said. He looked at the others as they walked. Danzo, for as long as I can remember, has tried to get first the third and then Lady Tsunade to give him control over Naruto. Till his escape, he's worked to gain some measure of power over Naruto. Shikamaru groaned. We need to get Sakura's mom in for questioning. They saw Hinata with Team 9 and Itachi and went to tell them what has happened. Underverse. The howling wind outside kept the pair awake for some time. Naruto managed to take down a deer, and the meat had been smoked. Micah took the antlers and was carving something since he couldn't sleep when there was a flash over the fire. Master. The silver-haired Hanyu yelped, getting up, and his cry woke Naruto from his semi-doze. About time, you baka fox. He muttered. Stow it, whelp. Hugh said, and both boys saw his features had changed a bit. He was more vulpine in his features. What happened, master? Micah asked, stoking the fire up to give more light and warmth. Yeah, you screamed and vanished. Naruto said. I did not scream. And I didn't vanish. Hugh said. The shade took a seat on the ground, his back to the door. Some things have happened and not all of them good. Hugh said, starting off. First things first. I wanted to tell you what happened when I went to see Tsunade. Naruto listened as his mentor told him what had happened. He was happy that Tsunade and his friends hadn't betrayed him like he thought. He listened about the execution of the council and of Hinata being the vessel for the spirit of vengeance. She's been on a rampage punishing those who have done you harm, Kit. Q said. Naruto didn't say anything and Q continued with the trial and escape of Sasuke and Danzo to join with Orochimaru. The old woman's got Team 9 looking for you. I told her that you are both here and being trained by me. I didn't tell her old the super pervert what I was teaching you exactly. Naruto nodded absently, his mind absorbing all he'd learned. So, you can go back. Micah said. Naruto just grunted. They will need us to help deal with the snake and his ilk. He's managed to make several alliances. Damn pedophile. Naruto muttered. He'd never liked the snake Sannin after the Forest of Death incident, and it became worse after the search for Tsunade with Jiraiya. Now that home matters have been filtered in, let's talk about what happened a couple days ago. Q said. After I vanished on you both, which I am sorry about. But I was forced into Kami's court. Both Micah and Naruto looked at him in surprise. What you felt, Kit, was your bond with Gaara through Shukaku. The big desert rat got himself removed from Gaara, and your friend from Suna died. Gaara's dead. Naruto looked at the shade in surprise. No, he was, but another mortal sacrificed their life force for his. Gaara remains amongst the living. Now, the reason I was drawn to Kami's court was because of my position. Kami has decreed that without a successor Shukaku's domain will be held by a steward. Once a new one-tailed lord has been decided upon, then Kami will release those lands and vassals to the new Shukaku. Naruto was confused, but Micah raised his hand. Why isn't Gaara seen as Shukaku's successor? He was his Jinchuriki. The two were constantly in conflict. While the runt here will be my successor on the physical plane, I am, until he has all my power, be regent. Naruto looked at the fox shade. Micah put a hand on his shoulder. You suspected this. Why so surprised? I don't want this. Naruto said, looking at Q. Won't have to worry about it for a long time, Kit. Live, grow old, have a dozen of fat pink babies that you mortals seem to spawn. Micah snorted. I don't know. Some vixens I've seen have spawned several batches of their own. Q and Naruto both snorted and the tension ebbed away. Seriously, Kit, it's not something you need to worry about for a century at least, unless you're stupid and die. They were silent for a bit. You both made good time. I'm surprised you didn't enter the tomb entrance. Micah wasn't sure and thought it better for wait until we knew what happened to you. Naruto said and Micah shrugged. You were feeling pulled to it. I thought it better than to walk into a viper's den or worse. Good thinking. There are creatures around the tundra that are very dangerous. Q said. Oh yeah, so far we just seen rabbits, a couple of deer and wolves. Naruto said. That is because a lot of the fiends here are nocturnal or subterranean. I would have passed you both up if not for my bunla senses. Q admitted. Now then, both of you rest up, we'll head out at first light. It might take time to navigate the tombs. It's been a long time since I was down there, and we don't know what might have moved in since then. Q said, giving them both a look, and smirked at the grumbling teens who said they didn't need a nursemaid. Micah and Naruto returned to their sleeping roles while Q thought of things he hadn't said, his eyes watching the two sleeping boy he'd taken on as his apprentices. Konoha. Tsunade was not pleased. She stood in the observation room watching as Ibiki and Anko worked over one Ira Haruno. Her eyes narrowed as the woman screamed and yelled. Lord Danzo shall crush you all. Tsunade turned to Shizune. Prepare the Anbu to take in the whole Haruno clan. She said. It's obvious with the head family corrupted we may need to see the others as well. Shizune nodded and went to follow her orders. Tsunade listened as the female Haruno swore that Lord Danzo would crush them all and return honor to Konoha. Tsunade sighed. We need to find out what she knows. Hinata. The vessel of vengeance seemed to melt out of the shadows and appeared before the interrogation chair. Leave us, she said, and Ibiki and Anko joined Tsunade and they watched as Hinata's hands went to the now struggling Haruno's temples. I made the mistake of allowing your daughter freedom. You Ira Haruno will receive no mercy, and now I know to watch out for your hidden persona, there will be no mistake. Hinata's vengeance voice spoke out. Your soul is stained with the blood of the innocent and the taint of corruption. Look into my eyes. Tsunade watched as Hinata's black Byakugan eyes blazed with black fire and Ira Haruno screamed as the spirit of vengeance shredded her mind and soul. Anko watched in shock as Ira's body went limp. 27 souls need to be purified. They are traitors. Hinata said, her cold unearthly voice intoned, looking at the Hokage. She put a hand out and black fire traced the names onto a scroll. Tsunade's eyes hardened seeing some of the names. Ibiki, she said. The special interrogation Junin looked at the list and scowled. Take teams 10 and have the elder Ino Shika Cho trio go with you. I want them rounded up and in prison before noon. She looked at Anko. You will join Shizune and Anbu in gathering up the remaining Haruno clan. They resist, kill them. Anko raised an eyebrow. We are at war, Maturashi. Move it, Tsunade said. She looked at the woman now laying limply on the interrogation chair, her eyes burned out. Hinata, she said after Ibiki and Anko were gone. I'm all right, Lady Tsunade. I let my anger get the best of me and burned out her mind, stripping the information away. Hinata said, turning back towards the fifth Hokage, her eyes once more normal. You want to talk about it? Hugh snickered as Naruto was using the Rasengan to dig into the collapsed tunnel. Micah was using his wind and several water jutsus to make ice supports to the redug tunnel. Kit, how was I to know it collapsed? It happens from time to time and dying demons don't need it as they appear in there. Naruto grumbled as he shoved the Rasengan into the snow and dirt once more. 2 days. 2 days and we've been at this the whole time. Naruto grumbled as the jutsu developed by the fourth ate up the dirt and snow. He shivered as Micah's air whipped in and collected the moisture and built new braces for the tunnel. Add some rock supports to it as well, Micah. Hugh said, seeing some of the closer braces melt from the heat from the Rasengan was putting out as it ate into the collapsed tunnel. Micah didn't speak, but his hands went through the hand seals and soon a rock pillar joined the one of ice. The silver-haired youth had been rather subdued since entering the tomb's entrance above ground. Hugh was too busy focusing on using his Vunla senses to see how far they would have to dig. Naruto's sword was back at the tent. The rune sword absorbed chakra and Naruto had nearly drained himself when they started digging using a Rasengan. It seemed that the blade couldn't be used within 5 feet of him. Kyuubi turned and looked at his other apprentice. Micah had woken earlier than usual the first day and had been despondent. Hugh had an idea, but he didn't want to say it out loud. Gah, I am such an idiot. Naruto said, backing up from where he'd been digging. Behind the shade and the blonde there was a snort. You said it. Micah muttered as he fused another strut into place. That was another thing. Since entering the tomb, Micah had become sarcastic and rude. Whatever. Naruto said as he put his hands in the familiar cross shape. Shadow clone jutsu. He yelled and a dozen clones filled the cramped tunnel. All right, you lot. Let's get digging. The original yelled and 4 sets of 3 yelled out and now 5 Rasengans were eating through the collapsed tunnel. Idiot. Micah muttered and shaking his head made several earth clones and used them to keep up with the digging Narutos. Don't be that way. Hugh said, hovering near the wind user. Whatever. What's been bugging you, Micah? Since entering the tomb above you've been short-tempered and I don't like it here. The deeper we go, the more I feel wrong. The silver-haired youth said. I don't like being rude to Naruto, nor you. But it seems that every fiber of me is screaming not to go further. Hugh sighed. I was afraid of this. Naruto, hold it. Hugh called out and the blonde stopped. He saw there was going to be a serious discussion, so he ordered the dozen clones to add more support while he went to see what was going on. What's up? The blonde asked, leaning against the wall near an ice and dirt support. Micah, you've been feeling this since we left the outpost and traveled closer to the demon graveyard, haven't you? Hugh asked. Golden eyes looked first at the tunnel floor and then up to Q, before the silver-haired teen nodded. Every fiber that is in me is screaming to go back. To stay away from here. I've been uneasy even when we slept above. Hugh sighed. Hey, Fox, what's going on? Naruto asked in concern for his friend. It's his dragon blood. Since being in the Underverse, Micah has felt the pull of it stronger and stronger. I was hoping his human blood would win out, but, Hugh paused. You can't be a Zot. Micah sighed. I knew. Deep down I knew. I've always had trouble using any and all Vunla-based abilities. Micah, I want you to return to the tent and meditate. I'll be back up to work on you with your wind and sword skills then. I'm sorry. Hugh said. Micah shrugged. It's not your fault, master. What's going on? Naruto asked, confused by this discussion. Kit, you and your clones will need to dig alone. Micah's Hanyu blood is making him uneasy. He can't go any further down the path you are traveling. His way while parallel is different. Micah shrugged. It's okay. I mean, you were stronger with Vunla than I ever was anyways. Micah said and gave the blonde a slight shrug and smirk. I'll work on my own skills. You just finish your training with the furball here and become a Zot master. Hugh made a choking sound at being called a furball, but both teens ignored him. Micah, don't. Just get down there. Do what Master Q tells you. Pass their centuries-old tests that probably be a cakewalk for you, and then make your Mekardapan and we'll head back to Konoha and kick and take names. Naruto saw the smirk and knew Micah was crushed that he couldn't go further, and yet here he was putting on a brave face for Naruto. Micah, go on, he said and turned away to head back up to wait with the tent. Naruto watched him go and then looked at the shade. Isn't there anything that we can do? No, Hugh said. I failed to see it, and I've done him harm in getting his hopes up. No, I saw it, but I was too proud. Hugh said. He looked at Naruto. We're nearly to the bottom. Get back to digging. Naruto nodded and went back using the Rasengan. The clones got theirs going as well, and Naruto and 4 clones dug away with the powerful jutsu, while the remaining 8 built supports from the dirt using earth manipulation jutsus. Micah sat in the middle of the tent while outside the wind howled, and Micah didn't wish to light the fire yet. He sat in a relaxed lotus position, the Hanzo sword in its sheath lay before him. If I can't use Vunla, I can use what I've learned and add it to my mastery of wind. He thought. Closing his eyes, he focused inwards. He felt better being away from the tomb. And he understood his dragon blood was ill at ease in the tomb of the demons. He never admitted it to Naruto, but since coming to the Underverse, his dragon's blood had become stronger. His nature has been surging. He could use his wind without even a bare thought as an extension. Wind jutsus he didn't need to form hand seals. He found that water jutsus were easier, and he actually thought what he could do with his stronger chakra control. He stretched out with his senses, and using the wind he could tell there was others nearby, their shapes formed in the wind. They weren't moving, but watching both the tent and the tomb entrance. I wonder who's coming to call. Micah thought as he tried to strengthen his connection. He added Vunla to it, and while he wouldn't be able to go to the lengths Naruto could, he smiled at what he was able to accomplish. Time for the hunted to become the hunter. Micah thought, his hand going to the Hanzo sword. Naruto smirked as they broke through the last of the collapsed tunnel. Naruto and his clones cheered, and the blonde took a moment to look around. With a low whistle, he saw the architecture. Whoa, impressive, isn't it? Hugh said as light orbs sprang to life. What? Naruto asked. Ancient technology. It is as you youngsters say. Cool. Naruto walked around the huge chamber. Stone daises formed a circle in the center of the chamber. At the far end was a giant door that was bigger than the Hokage Tower. Naruto removed his winter cloak and looked around. It's warm down here. Yes, it is. Both Q and Naruto spun about. They'd failed to realize that they weren't alone, and now they'd been taken by surprise. Hello, Kyuubi. Konoha. Hinata stood atop the Hokage's monument. She'd talked with Tsunade about what she'd done to Ira Haruno. Sakura had been added to the bingo book. Hinata looked on as her Byakugan eyes saw the changes Shikamaru and his father were making to the village's defenses. The elder Nara had taken what he'd learned, and after the Haruno clan members had been interrogated, were making alterations. The village walls were being added to yet again, and conscriptions to the village militia were going on even now. I should have finished her when I had the chance. I'm too weak. No, Hinata, you're not weak. Jakaila. Yes, child. Although I am merging more and more with you each passing day, I am still here. You showed mercy. Even I have never encountered the persona aspect the Haruno clan hid all this time. But I could have prevented this. And Kushina could still be alive if she'd been stronger after giving birth early over stress. Fate is a kind and cruel woman. Be strong, if not for yourself and Konoha, then for Naruto. You feel for him as well. Hinata thought to the spirit in the back of her mind. Of course I do. He was born from my last host. I feel a family connection to him, and you wish to have a connection. One of mate, of spouse. Hinata could feel the spirit pause. What? You know something. I know many things. You will know all I do in time. I will tell you this now. This time you are away from him, is but a spark in the amount of time you both can have. What do you mean, Jakaila? Both you and Naruto will, bearing being killed long lives. Kushina knew this as well. Bearing enough physical damage, you both will be relatively immortal. Once you both reach your majority of 20, 21, you won't physically age. And with my abilities, you will be harder to kill. But what of Naruto? Hey, Naruto is the Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi no Kitsune, but if you notice, he's stronger than your average Jinchuriki. Kyuubi chose him as his successor. The seal on Naruto over time would have drained Kyuubi of his life and chakra. By willingly naming him, Naruto will be the next Kyuubi and will be needed in the Underverse. Hinata sat on a tree stump. What? Why? As the next Kyuubi, he will be king of the Kitsune. He will be expected to report to the Elemental Empress, and Kami as well. But if that happens, how will he ever be Hokage? Hinata thought. She knew Naruto wanted to be the greatest Hokage ever. Sadly, as a demon lord, the people won't allow him to have the peace he craves here. And he will be a king. Hokage is nothing compared to that. Child. What is it, Jakaila? When the time comes, go with him. You won't have a place here either. Even if you aren't his mate at the time. You will outlive all others here and it will be painful. What was Kushina going to do? Hinata asked. Kushina had planned to remain in Konoha to protect her children and their descendants. The spirit of vengeance sent the image of Kushina making that vow to Minato while early on in her pregnancy. It's not fair. Hinata said aloud. What's not fair, child? It's not fair that Naruto knows nothing of his heritage, and I know everything his mother knew. Why wasn't he ever told, I wonder? Hinata thought to the spirit. I do not know Hinata, but when you see him, you can tell him all you know. Use it to break the ice. Now, I must rest. My time separate from you is nearing its end. I find I am less myself and more you with every day, and soon, you will be vengeance. When you die, I will return to the scroll, and you can dictate where it goes. Be well, Hinata. I sense soon you will be with Naruto. Everything is rushing to a conclusion. Be strong, be safe. Hinata felt the spirit of vengeance return to its slumber once more, and she found the sun was setting on another day in the Leaf Village. Hello, Kyuubi. Naruto went into a defensive stance and regretted not having a sword. After 2 years with a longer blade, he felt without one. Hugh chuckled. Miss me? The fox shade asked. The man stepped out of the shadows. Naruto gasped. The man was nearly 7 feet tall, had hair as white as snow. It was the pure blood red eyes that caught his attention. There were no pupils, just pools of red that seemed to take in everything. Like a rash. You don't have a body, yet you don't register as dead. The man said. Idendigan. Still the guardian of the dead. Hugh said. Kyuubi no Kitsune, and, the big man's head tilted to the side and his blood red eyes studied Naruto. He has your chakra. And marks, son. Chuckles close enough. Naruto Uzumaki. He is my Jinchuriki, and my Baiti. Ithendigan raised a white eyebrow. You were foolish enough to get caught on the earth plane. The big man shook his head and walked past the pair. Naruto saw a scythe and chain on the big man's back. Master Q, who is this guy? Naruto asked, watching as the big man took up a position before the stone circle in the middle of the room. Idendigan. He is the undertaker here in the demon's graveyard. I thought he'd have died years ago. Hugh said, watching as the big man paused before a statue and bowed. But then immortals only pass on when they wish. And being here, Hugh's shade shrugged. Do I have to fight him or something? Naruto asked nervously. He was tired from digging, and he wasn't armed except for a few kunai. Not yet. Hugh answered. Idendigan. Hugh called out, getting the big man's attention. What is it, Kyuubi? You aren't dead, and your container isn't near death. What do you want? I am here to allow my Baiti to gain the materials needed to create his Mekardapan and take the trials to become a Zodgekard. Hugh said, standing sliding behind Naruto, his ghost hands hovering over the blonde's shoulders. The guardian of the tomb paused and looked at Naruto. Strong with Vunla. How long has he been training? 2 years. The white-haired behemoth snorted. And you think he's ready for the trials? I'll allow him access to make his Mekardapan, but the trials, he's not ready. I am ready. Hugh, tell him. Naruto said, looking at the stranger and not liking that this man judged him with just looking at him. He was sick of people doing that to him. Are you? The big man said, his red eyes staring at Naruto, and he felt exposed, as if he stood before Kami and was being weighed for his life deeds. He's strong. His aura, despite housing your Uchiha, has remained pure. Fascinating, the big man said as he continued to look at Naruto. He allows his emotions to rule him. Hugh remained silent while the Undertaker judged his apprentice. He could say nothing to sway the tomb's guardian opinion. He at least is allowing us to make a Mekardapan. Make your weapon. But you aren't ready for the trials. You must learn to control yourself. You must learn to master your emotions, and your power. Idendigan said. Until you do, you will never make Zot Gekard. Naruto snorted. I don't know what Gekard means. I'm a ninja. Idendigan paused. Ninja you say? He asked, looking at Kyuubi, who nodded. Gekard is Wimprat for night. The big man explained after several moments. You want to be a Zot Hazi. The big man stroked his chin in thought. Gather your supplies. I have much to think about. The big man seemed to shimmer and then vanished. What the hell? Naruto asked, rounding on Q, who looked surprised as well. Come, Kit. We don't have much time. Q said, floating into the stone circle. Now focus both chakra, mine and yours, and use these hand signs. Q said, demonstrating several seals. Wait, what was that one? Naruto asked. Demon, and the one after that was dead. Q explained and watched as Naruto pulled on both chakras. It had taken then a lot of time, but Naruto had phenomenal chakra control now that he could pull up to 5 tails of power without side effects. I can't wait for him to be able to use all 9 tails. But that will be years away yet. He's made great progress with the 5 he awakened. Q thought, watching as Naruto went over the hand signs slowly before connecting them faster. You are my heir, Naruto. Both of us were robbed of our paths in life. But I swear, Kit, you will be king of demons in the end, and you will be stronger than I ever was. Naruto, sure of the hand signs, went through them using the red-blue chakra to connect with them, and in a flash the pair vanished. A pair of red eyes had watched from atop the giant doorway. Uzumaki Naruto. You will do great things. For good or evil, you will do great things. Otogaker. Sakura was pissed. She'd just been delivered news that her whole clan had been taken in and her mother was a lifeless husk. Damn that Hyuga whore. She ranted and kicked a chair across the room. I will kill that pale-eyed bitch. Danzo and Sai watched their deep cover operative. Lord Danzo. Sai asked. Do not concern yourself, Sai. Sakura just found out Konoha has her clan in prison. Sadly, our network was discovered and we do not have an informant in Konoha any longer. What does Orochimaru say? The strange root operative asked. He says it's no concern. The Uchiha is going through jutsus and we'll be able to attack and wipe out Leaf soon. Danzo watched as Sakura destroyed some more furniture. That is enough, Sakura. The pink-haired Kunoichi froze in mid-throw and turned to look at Danzo. Her sickly yellow-green eyes looked at him. When the time come that Hyuga whore is mine. But of course, my dear. Now, study the scrolls you gained for us. Learn all you can. If you need help, Sai will aid you. The ink-using nin looked at his master in surprise, but it didn't reach his face. And where is Sasuke? She asked. The Uchiha is being taken care of, and undergoing special training. You won't see him till he's done. Danzo said, his voice taking on a hint of steel. Very well, Sakura said, and spinning picked up the pack with the stolen scrolls and went towards her room. Heel Sai. She called out mockingly, and the root operative wondered if he could get away with smothering her while she slept. Konoha. Tsunade looked at the maps on her desk, then at Shikamaru. Give me your best estimate. She ordered. Sai, we figure 2, maybe 3 more months. Jiraiya-sama's informants are being assassinated and information is becoming harder to come by. Tsunade looked at the elder Nara. Recommendations. Shikaku Nara sighed exactly in the same way as his son. Suna was decimated heavily by Akatsuki. Many of their nin that we were expecting for backup were wiped out. He pointed at the map as he continued. Best bet would be to have Suna abandon their city and retreat behind our walls. That way we have only one city to defend. Tsunade rubbed her temples. Snow and water have sent more supplies, but the lines are becoming too dangerous for them to cross, and their ninja forces aren't up to standards. Shikamaru spoke up. We've had the academy students of both Suna and Konoha acting as messengers as well as many civilians building the oasis. The oasis was a desert trap that they were counting on Gaara's aid to use in spring. Have you mentioned the move to the cage? She asked the two Naras. Hi. He was reluctant to abandon the village, but he realizes that his forces were decimated by just two S-class nuke nins. He's evacuating the civilians and academy students first. Shikamaru said. The cage believes it best to use Suna as a trap itself. He and a volunteer group will use Suna to delay the invading villages. They will use guerrilla tactics as they fall back to Konoha. Shikaku points at the map. This passage here we can rig to collapse. They will either need to dig out or take several days' journey. But that will route them into some of the smaller fishing villages. Tsunade didn't like that. What about trapping them? She asked. We could trap some, but with the amount of ninja they will have, Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome as it is, we're going to get our asses kicked. Tsunade did not like that. I don't care what you have to do, but come up with a winning solution, she paused. Shikaku, pull all nin out of retirement. If they can stand, they can fight. Lady Tsunade, Orochimaru is putting together forces to wipe us out of existence. Plan traps, use the civilian militia. Press gang academy students from the final years. Konoha will not fall. We'll use the time we have in the next 2 months. Or 3. Shikamaru mumbled but fell silent seeing the Hokage's eyes harden. We'll use our time as best as possible. Hell, use some of Naruto's old prank ideas to set traps. Get Uruka Yumino and Konohamaru Sarutobi in on it. Shikamaru looked up. What about Naruto? He asked. He's not available. Best thing to do is plan that he's still exiled. Troublesome. Shikamaru said rising and walking out the door, his hands in his pockets and his shoulders slumped. And if we did have Naruto? Shikaku asked after his son had left to work on a plan. Sai, as always, he's Konoha's #1 unpredictable knucklehead ninja. He's a wildcard into any situation, as I'm sure you boy knows. I've got slugs out looking for a way to contact him. Crunch time is coming. Where the hell are you, Naruto? Where the hell are we? Naruto asked. It's so dark I can't see my hand in front of my face. My bad. Emishahida. The darkness suddenly was peeled back as globes of light slowly sprang to life. Naruto could feel it with his Bunla-enhanced senses. Whoa, he uttered. The power and energy flowing around the place made Naruto think of being lost in the ocean. Welcome to the Bone Yard Kit. Hugh said. Naruto realized there were millions of pillars, each had etchings on them. What are they? He asked looking at one. It had the image of a Hawkman on it. Each pillar contains the several bones and liquids from a demon. That one you are looking at is the tomb of Horus, a half-man half-bird demon. They passed on from the realm long ago during the Great Wars. Great Wars? Naruto asked. Yes. Underverse once was racked by war, as factions fought. Solid anew as the result of peace. Some species of demon died out during the war, others mutated and became fiends. While others thrived. Like the Kitsune? Naruto asked. Yes. The dragons too thrived, but they are mostly in hiding, and only a few half-breeds come out now. The great dragons prefer to slumber till they are needed once more. Mikahamaru's ancestors. But why? The dragons are forces of nature themselves. Life and death. When I was young, I'd say about a century or two, there was a flight of dragons. The end result was the Ester Sands, which once had been a rich jungle became the wasteland it is even today. Hugh said as he floated past pillars. Come on. We have to reach the Fox section. There we will get the materials to make you the weapon of Azat. Naruto followed and his eyes looking upwards. This place is huge. Hey, the graveyard is in its own pocket dimension. The only way in is through the tomb. Kyuubi paused. Here is Shukaku. My remains are here too. Well, my bodily remains. You mean your spirits? What? Oh. No, our chakra is crystallized into democite. The only thing here are our bones and crystallized chakra, and some organs and such. Naruto looked at the pillar of one of the demonic sand raccoons. So, will one of his people get his position since Gaara can't? Naruto asked as they started walking again. It is up to Kami to decide. Now Kit, listen to me. When we reach the Kitsune section, I am going to have to explain some things to you before we begin. You will need to pay attention this time, no fooling around. This is life or death matters. Hugh spoke, making sure he had the blonde's attention. They continued to walk and Naruto took in the pillars. Each one had information about the demon. Not a lot of information. The blonde muttered. Each pillar contains a rumulna, a type of memory crystal. Hugh stopped before one pillar and waved a hand using Vunla to activate it. An image of a demon fire crab appeared and many words in a language that Naruto figured was Wimprat. Really need to learn about this. Sucks having to ask for translations all the time. The blonde thought as he looked at it, as it seemed to scroll on and on with history of the demon. Older demons like myself and Shukaku could spend years reading everything we've ever done. Hugh said with a smirk, using Vunla to deactivate the pillar, and continued on with Naruto. After what felt like hours, they reached the Kitsune burial ground. Naruto noticed there were less pillars here. Kitsune are crafty by nature and we tend to live longer than other demon races by escaping and continuing on another day. Hugh said, noticing his look. Hugh drifted around, and Naruto saw him pause before a set of pillars. A sad look came over the shade's face. Hugh. Naruto asked softly. This is my mother's grave. Hugh said. She was killed during the Great Demon War. She was seduced and then betrayed by one we thought was ally. Naruto stepped back and allowed Hugh to mourn at his mother's grave. Kit. Pay attention. Sit in a meditation position. Naruto did as the Kyuubi ordered. Close your eyes. Center in. Feel your connection with the Vunla deep within. Hugh continued. His eyes still on the marker of his mother. Clear your mind of fear and doubt. Feel the Vunla reaching out. Naruto calmed his breathing slower and slower. He did as Q ordered. His mind eased and the tension he'd felt since they'd arrived at the tomb seemed to flow out of him. Vunla ever seeking. Feeling. Touching, seeping. Q watched as Naruto in lotus position rose off the ground. He watched silently now as Naruto, deep in a Vunla trance, drifted away and soon found himself in front of a grave that Kyuubi wished he'd never see. You had to pick her. He muttered. He looked up at the ceiling. Kami. I know you're laughing. Kyuubi sighed. The only vixen that ever truly captured my heart. I swear, Kami, you and the Elemental Empress are out to mess with me. The former fox demon muttered under his breath, hoping Naruto didn't hear him. All right, Kit. Now that you've made a connection. Kyuubi didn't get to finish as the pillar grave glowed with a faint red light. Oh, this isn't right. The demon thought as he watched the pillar glow brighter, and he looked at his apprentice and saw he too was glowing. The red Uchiha and Naruto's own blue chakra were merging, forming a royal purple. What in Kami's panties? Micah dodged and avoided the ball and chain. Damned lizard men, he thought. They'd burrowed under the snow and tried to surprise him, but his connection to the wind told him of the change and he'd used his limited Vunla abilities to sense them. He stood out in the snow, the Hanzo sword drawn, and he had a stance with the blade position pointing to the sky like he'd seen Master Kwai do before. The first lizard creature had exploded out of the snow and found itself cut in half, its blood staining the snow. 3 more exploded up out of the snow just out of reach. Micah was dodging the chain weapons and his wind shield was stopping the lizard men's arrows and spears from getting to him. Damn it. Since that initial strike I've been on the defensive. Micah was hating this, but the fact that 2 would engage and the other 2 would burrow back into the snow and pop up to attack was annoying. I can't remain like this for long. Micah thought as his wind shield destroyed another pair of arrows, while the 2 he'd been fighting dove back into the snow. I see why they are dangerous. Master Q will be pissed at me for letting myself get into this situation. Micah leapt straight into the air to avoid the spear that would have impaled him from below. Wind style. Snow hurricane. He yelled and his wind attack whipped snow around with gale force, and slammed it into one of the lizard men. He smiled, hearing a nice crack indicating something important in it had broken. Micah's joy was short-lived as another 2 sprang up from the snow. How many are there? He muttered, using the air and snow to create a platform up above. Several arrows slammed into his hovering perch and he glared at the damn creatures. Okay, you walking suitcases. You want to pick a fight? Come on. I need to relieve tension. Micah sheathed the Hanzo sword and his hands went through several jutsu seals. Eat this suitcase, he said and concentrated. Fire style. Wind style. Combination burring wind blade. The large blade of flame cut down and impacted. 2 of the lizard men weren't fast enough and were burnt to crisp where they stood. The others managed to burrow deep even as the fire wind attack slammed into the ground and melting snow and ice to reveal charred dirt. Micah's hands were already in motion. Water style. Water missile. With all the moisture in the air, Micah found the water element easy to call upon and the javelin-like water spikes rained down on the ground as he tried to pin down the lizard men. This is not getting me anywhere. I need to do something, that's it. His hands flew through the hand signs. Earth style. Rock spikes. Micah focused his chakra and instead of the spikes forming up out of the ground they formed aiming into the ground. An eruption of blood told Micah he'd gotten another one. But he swore as 7 lizard men rose from the ground and he was forced to dodge arrows and spears. Master Q said they would return, and in greater numbers, but this is becoming ridiculous. Micah landed and leapt again. His wind shield caught more arrows and he used them as his wind spun them around and sent the barrage back at the lizard men archers. He was hovering in the air when he saw something big pushing up from the snow. Oh, this can't be good. Seconds before the ground erupted and monstrous war filled the air. Naruto was surrounded by swirling purple chakra. Kyuubi looked on in shock. Not something I was expecting. He muttered. The pillar pulsed and Kyuubi saw its glow was syncing with Naruto's. Oh Takasis. Q thought watching the pillar of the one vixen he'd thought would have been his mate. Q watched as the two signatures seemed to stretch out and connect. This isn't what I thought would happen. Takasis, what are you up to from beyond the grave? Q thought as he watched the vortex spin about and Naruto limply hover in the air. The chakra in and around the boy surged and Q was shocked by this. She's merging her chakra. And ours, what in the name of Kami? He watched as Takasis's grave seemed to shimmer and 2 bones about 14 inches drifted out. Q watched as 2 vials floated out as well and then 2 shards of democite. 2. Oh Takasis, you're being far too generous here. What are you up to, you naughty vixen? Kyuubi thought watching as the item spun in the purple vortex of chakra with Naruto hanging there in his Vunla enhanced trance. Kit? Q asked. Naruto made no response and Kyuubi could only watch as the item spun around to halt before the blonde. The bones seemed to shimmer and take shape and they glowed a orangish tinge. Q watched as the vials dissolved, and the organs in there seeped into the bones. Takasis's heartstrings. Amazing. Next came the democite shards. Neither was longer than a finger, and Q took note of their color. Strange. They're changing color to match, interesting. Never knew that could happen. Always thought it was the demon that determined the color. He watched as the democite merged with the heartstrings and then the bones. Naruto's chakra engulfed them. Kit's a natural. Didn't even need to read the scrolls. This is all instinct. I knew he'd do well. Kyuubi thought proudly as he watched as the bones were shaped by the chakra. Runes were traced in by invisible fingers, and Q would bet that Takasis's spirit was guiding Naruto. Q watched as Naruto drifted back to the ground, his feet touching down. The blonde's hands reached out and there was flash as his hands touched the bone handles. Well, I'll be son of a toad. Q muttered seeing 2 energy blade crackling with raw power. One was the same purple as Naruto's new blended chakra. The other, however, was the same sickening orange that the blonde used to wear. Kit, you keep surprising the hell out of me. Q muttered and used the Vunla to cushion Naruto as he slumped to the ground unconscious, the 2 blades deactivating, the Jinchuriki never letting go of his new weapons. Micah used the wind to push himself back and higher. What the hell? He pondered. It was big. Bigger than a boss summon. He thought using the air to remain where he was looking down as the 4-legged lizard landed on the snow and ice with a loud earth-shaking thud. Micah took a moment to study it. It had no eyes that he could see, but its mouth was huge, as were the fangs in its mouth. I'd be like a gnat attacking it. He thought. Its scales were a sickly white and brown. How the hell does it see? He wondered and was answered when flaps at the top of the creature's head opened up and the air warmed up as it swung its head about. Heat. Infrared. Micah thought and used the colder wind above him to cool his body temperature. He watched as the big thing with teeth stomped around. The lizard men were hissing and chirping at it in their strange language with a few growls as well. Bastards are telling it where I am. Micah muttered seeing one of them gesture in his direction. Micah was tiring. Using his wind and several powerful jutsus was wearing him down. I don't have Naruto's chakra reserves. I mean, yeah, I have large amount of chakra, but his is boundless. He thought as he tried to think of way to end this with him still alive. Unfortunately, his thoughts distracted him and he failed to see the large four-legged lizard creature puff up and needle-like spikes shoot from its spine. The blossoming pain cost him his concentration and he fell to the ground below, landing with a hard bone-rattling impact. In pain from both being turned into a pincushion and the fall, Micah saw one of the lizard men standing over him, a clawed foot standing on the blade of the Hanzo sword, and the lizard man was raising its curved blade in the air. This is it, Micah thought. There's some sort of paralyzing agent in the spikes, I can't focus my chakra, and my body feels numb. Micah's golden eyes looked on. Goodbye, Naruto. There was a flash of steel and a gout of blood. Hugh watched over Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki was still unconscious, but there were some changes. Hugh noted that the boy's hair was becoming longer and there were red and black highlights. He saw the boy's canine teeth were peeking out slightly now. Takasis, what did you do? He thought, watching. Hugh studied his container and apprentice. His fingers are tipped with claws. Takasis, you've altered him. He's a Hanyu, oh Kami. Hugh looked at the grave of the vixen he'd considered mate. What has Kami allowed you to do? Kyuubi thought. And I can't see her till. Kyuubi shook his head. We'll need to play this by ear. Damn women manipulating things they shouldn't. Hugh could have sworn he heard a soft feminine chuckle from the shadows. Dreamscape. What the hell? Naruto said, looking around. He was in a forest and there was a thick fog all around. He looked down and saw that his shirt was ripped and his tanned skin showed. He noticed that the seal on his stomach was gone, which had caused him to curse. His black ninja pants were intact, and for that he was thankful. Ero Sanin might be caught streaking, but I'm not a pervert. Naruto looked around, wondering where he was and how he got there. Hello, Naruto-kun. Naruto spun around quickly and saw a vixen standing there. She had 9 tails. He saw that her fur was a royal purple and she had streaks of orange in her fur. Her long reddish-brown hair hung to her knees. She wore black leather pants that seemed to be a second skin that hugged her hips. Her belly was showing and then the leather halter top. Who the hell are you? Naruto asked. She laughed. So much like him. She said, smiling. Naruto looked at her red eyes. Her fanged smile had him wondering. Who? He asked. Kyuubi-kun. She answered with a grin. Naruto was lost. He knew there was so much said and unsaid right now. Who are you? He asked again. She smiled. I'm hurt. You use my heartstrings and bones and chakra to make your Mekardapan and you don't know me. She gave him an exaggerated pout. Takasis. Naruto asked, hesitant. The vixen smiles and claps her hands. Very good, Naruto-kun. Aren't you dead? Oh Kami, I messed up and died making my swords. Naruto said with a panic, his eyes widening. Takasis laughed. No. Calm down, Naruto-kun. You aren't dead. Kami has so many things for you to see and do, and your future wife would be most upset to the point I think she would storm the gates of heaven itself if you did die before she got to show you how she feels. My wa. Naruto was confused beyond belief and it caused the vixen to laugh even more. Let's just say Kami and Fate have plans for you, Naruto-kun, and they want you to have long life filled with a loving wife and many children. Takasis smiled as Naruto seemed to be in a daze. Now Naruto-kun, we have much to discuss. She said, snapping her fingers in front of the blonde's eyes and getting a response after the third snap. Now then, we need to talk about some changes. Takasis said, leading Naruto to a small stream and having him sit on a log next to her, the surrounding fog pulling back slightly. Changes? Naruto asked. Takasis sighed. I may have made some alterations. Naruto was up and looking into the stream, his reflection looking back at him. Ah. He spun and looked at her. What did you do to me? Made you Hanyu. The vixen said with a bored tone. Truthfully, it was needed. Needed. Why would this be needed? He said, gesturing at his longer hair, deepened whisker marks, slightly longer fangs and claws on the end of his fingers. Now Naruto-kun. Stop calling me that. Takasis sighed. Why is it all men with 9 tails worth of power are such loud-mouthed whiny bitches? She muttered and stood up and slapped him. Naruto, who had been ranting about stupid foxes, was shocked and his hand went to his stinging cheek. Are you calmed down enough to listen? Takasis asked. Naruto, rubbing his stinging cheek, nodded slightly. Sit. The vixen commanded and Naruto did. I apologize. You were brought to this land between waking and sleep to allow me to explain to you some things that have happened and to explain some things that will need to happen. Naruto grunted while still rubbing his stinging cheek. Now, I made some changes to you. First, because you will be Kyuubi's successor. The reason was that you gained all his chakra after you and the Dragon Han brought him out. Sadly, the chakra with no Kyuubi to limit it was going to kill you in another year. Naruto looked at the seal on his stomach and he saw it was broken in areas and was fading slowly. He looked back up at the vixen in panic. Relax. As a Hanyu, the chakra will not harm you. I had Kami's aid in redesigning your chakra pathways. Where you once had 2 different chakra sources, you now have 1. Go ahead and focus some into your hand. Naruto did as she instructed. It's purple, he said, seeing the swirling chakra vortex in his hand. Yes. It's combined. Yours, Kyuubi's and mine. Yours? Naruto asked. Yes. When you used the Demosite shards to forge your Mechardapans, you connected with my chakra in them. Naruto sighed. So, does this mean I'll have you in my head? No. No. This is a visitation. When it's done, I shall return to Kami's court. I am here to explain to you. Naruto nodded and she smiled, seeing his expression. Would having an incredibly vixen in your head be such a bad thing, Naruto? She asked. Naruto was about to answer, but stopped. I refused to answer that on the grounds that no matter what I say, I'd end up in trouble somehow. Takasis laughed. Your Dragon Hanyu friend has been rubbing off on you. She calmed and looked at the young Hanyu before her. So now, you're a fox Hanyu. This also had one other side effect. Call on your tails. Naruto got a really bad feeling and did as she said. He focused the chakra. Slowly 9 tails materialized one after another, each swinging behind him. All 9 tails of power are yours. Takasis said. I don't feel different. Naruto said, looking at the tails, and like his hair they were blonde with the reddish and black streaks in them. What was causing you the troubles was your human blood. You're a Hanyu now. The power is yours. Kyuubi will need to advise you on their abilities. Abilities? Yes. Each tail holds a different type of power. Truthfully, if your father hadn't called upon a Shinigami, Kyuubi would haven't been stopped. Wait. Naruto looked at her. Father. Oh. Who? The vixen realized her mistake. Konoha. Hinata sighed as she slipped into bed. It had been a long day at the hospital and earlier in the day working Kakashi and Hanabi as a team. Tsunade had offered to find a 3rd member, but Hinata had told her mentor that a 3rd spot wouldn't be filled. Until Haruno is dead, that slot will remain vacant. The young vessel of vengeance had told the blonde Hokage. Hinata looked at a photo she salvaged from Naruto's apartment after she'd found out about his exile. It was of him, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Tonton and Shizune. Hinata picked up the picture and her delicate fingers traced the face of the young man she'd crushed on since she'd seen him all those years ago. Naruto-kun, where are you? Are you well? Kami, I wish I had a chance to tell you how I feel. Will you feel the same way? Have you found another to love since your exile? Hinata put the photo back. She looked over and saw the box of possessions she'd saved that day. Stupid villagers celebrated your exile by torching your apartment. I saved what I could. Hinata sighed. She was tired. In the time since Naruto's exiled, she'd killed so many. She'd become stronger. She'd fixed her clan, killed the bastard Hiashi Hyuga that was her father. Sperm donor. That man was never a father. Hinata thought as she changed into a shirt to sleep in and then into her bed. She looked at the picture of Naruto once more. Please, Naruto-kun, come home soon. Even if you found someone else, please come home. And with that, Hinata Jakaila fell into a deep sleep, and the land of dreams. Takasis sighed. She'd managed to calm Naruto down and explain his parentage to him. Stupid, doddering, well-meaning old men. She muttered after telling him who his father and mother were. Naruto was sitting there in shock. My father. My own father sacrificed me, he used me. They both love you, Naruto. Takasis said. They tore strips into Sarutobi when he died, and each time another Konoha moron is sent to be judged, they tear into them. Naruto grunted. So mom was killed moments after giving birth to me, she didn't abandon me. Takasis went to her knees and pulled the new Hanyu into a hug. Oh, Kami, no. Your mother fought the poison effects, but she was so weakened. Who killed her? Naruto asked. his eyes becoming hard as diamonds. A man named Danzo. I know he betrayed Konoha recently and left to join the pedophile Sannin. Naruto growled. Danzo, I swear on the blood of my family I will kill you. Naruto's new nails dug into his palm and blood flowed. There was a flash and Takasis leapt back. You made a blood vow, do you know what it means? Don't know, don't care. I will kill Danzo. Naruto answered. Naruto, if you don't fulfill the vow, your soul will be placed in purgatory for eternity. So what? I will kill Danzo. The purple-tailed vixen looked concerned. She realized her time was running out, and there was still much to tell the young fox lord before her. Naruto, we're running out of time. I'm sorry, but there is much you need to know. The blue eyes looked at her and she noticed the pupils were now slits. Also do not swear to the Zot code. She said. What? Why? It will lock you into a vow you will have to break when you become the next Lord of Foxes. I'm not saying you can't build on the training you've learned. But swearing a vow now for you will have dire consequences. You have the Nine Tails power and you're a Hanyu. Words and vows are very powerful now. Kyuubi will need to coach you. Takasis said. Also, while you can use Vunla and Chakra, don't fall in the same trap Kyuubi did. Don't become arrogant in your abilities. Naruto was going to deny it, but he paused and thought about it. I will try. Do or do not Naruto. You're a Hanyu now. Try is for mortals. Naruto thought about it and nodded. Events in the mortal realm are accelerating. Akatsuki while broken, there are those in its members that will come for you thinking to steal your power. Do not show them mercy Naruto, for they will not show you any. Naruto nodded. Remember his past encounter with Itachi and Kisame. Also, the snake Sannin must be stopped. Should he be victorious in his annihilation of Konoha, it will lead him to become ruler of the world in time, and from there, he would use his experiments to challenge the heavens. His experiments have already warped the boundaries of death. Naruto remembered hearing about how Orochimaru summoned the first and second Hokages from beyond the grave during his battle with Sarutobi Ojiazan. Your task is to stop him. To that end I am giving you this. Naruto looked at the scroll. A summoning scroll? He asked. But I have the toads. No, you are the prince of foxes Naruto. For you to summon another species would be a show of weakness. Break your mental link to the toads. As the Nine Tails, you will be able to summon foxes, and fox Hanyus like those you've met here in the Underverse. Takasis said. But who would be the boss fox that I summon? He asked her. With Kyuubi as a shade. Takasis smiled. Am I acceptable? She asked. But, she stepped away and transformed. Naruto looked up, and up and up. Kami, she's bigger than Boss Toad. Naruto thought seeing the purple and black-furred nine-tailed fox towering over him looking down, and he swore she smirked. Is this acceptable Naruto-kun? Naruto could only nod in surprise. With a puff she was back in her humanoid form and smirking. All kitsune when they are summoned transform. If you were to summon Shippo to the mortal realm, he would be in fox form unless you wanted him in his humanoid form. Not all foxes can be humanoid. She told him. Naruto looked at the scroll and opening it signed his name in blood. He watched as it shimmered and merged with his arm. What the hell? You won't need to have the scroll upon you, and it won't be allowed to be stolen from you. Takasis said. The vixen looked around. My time is running out. Remember, save Konoha, kill Orochimaru, and get together with your mate. She's waited a long time for you, the vixen smiled. Consider the time you have here with her a chance to clear the air and get to know her. What do you mean? Naruto asked as the purple-tailed vixen smirked and started walking away. And tell that lazy baka Kyuubi that I'm still waiting for him to propose. She vanished into the mist. Hey, wait. Naruto rushed after her, and couldn't find her. He was running headlong into the fog when he ran into someone, sending them both to the ground. Naruto got to his knees and found himself straddling a lithe figure. He looked up and saw a familiar pair of pale eyes and blue-black hair, and a heart-shaped face. Hinata. Underverse. Demon's Graveyard. Kyuubi jumped seeing a flash emanate from Naruto and went to check on the boy. What in the name of Kami's kittens is going on? The shade wondered using his Vunla senses to check the boy over. He couldn't find anything wrong. Using Vunla he moved the shirt up and winced as he saw the seal was dissolving. That can't be good. The fox shade muttered. He sat watching. His life force is strong, There's nothing physically wrong. He shouldn't be unconscious. The scrolls were very specific. So that leaves something outside that's messing with this. The former demon lord thought. Hurry up, Kit. I've got a really bad feeling that something is wrong. Hugh muttered. Dreamscape. Hinata. The pair looked at one another in surprise. Hinata was surprised. Is this as a dream? Don't let me ever wake. She thought as she looked at Naruto. She noticed the changes, and they seemed proper. NN Naruto-kun. She said. Her heart was fluttering in her chest. He looks beautiful, she thought, gazing at him. Naruto, his tails waving wildly behind him as he was frozen, crouched over a very beautiful Hinata. He found his mouth had gone dry after saying her name, and he couldn't look away from her. For eternity the pair were motionless, their eyes locked on the other's. Naruto with supreme effort looked away by checking out the rest of her. She was wearing a black shirt and he paused. Is that my shirt? He asked. Hinata blushed as she realized she was wearing nothing but her favorite nightshirt and panties that she'd gone to sleep in. Her cheeks heated up. She blushed even more, and credit had to be given that she hadn't fainted yet. Looks better on you, Naruto finally said as he managed to slip back and crouched on his heels. What the hell am I saying? The blonde thought. Is Naruto-kun flirting with me? Hinata thought as her cheeks flushed and her blush spread beneath the neckline. Thank you. And yes, it was yours. Hinata finally said, fighting to get her blush down. I thought it would be further in a relationship that Naruto-kun would see me like this. She thought, using every technique to calm herself that Jaka alone had taught her over the last couple of years. Ho, is this who I think it is? Grr, not now. I need to concentrate. Is this a dream? It's a waking dream. You're both in the dreamscape. Fascinating. Look at those muscles. Jaka alone. You were bonded to his mother. And now I'm bonded to you. Mortals with your strange ideals of right and wrong. I'll leave you alone. Your man is looking at you. Go get him, girly. And with that, Hinata felt the spirit of vengeance return to slumber in the back of her mind. How have you been? Naruto finally managed to ask. Lame. How have you been? How do you think, idiot? Naruto ranted to himself. I've been okay. Hinata said. Been missing you, she said. That got a raised eyebrow and she noticed the fox tails behind him cease movement. Miss me? Why? Naruto asked. Hinata licked her lips, trying to think how to say everything she'd planned to say over the years. Deep breath, which had the effect of drawing Naruto's gaze to the tight shirt that covered her chest. Naruto, I've been trying to tell you for years. Hinata, he said, cutting her off. Look at me, he said softly. When her pale eyes looked at his blue ones, he saw no judgment or anger. He saw something there, but he wasn't sure what. Well, he had an idea if some of the remarks from Q were any clue, but he was afraid to read too much into it. I'm a demon, Hinata, he said. No, you were the container, Hinata said, and Naruto shook his head. No, not anymore. Things have happened. I've changed. Naruto sighed and he gestured at himself. I'm now a Hanyu, and I don't care, Hinata said. Her eyes held determination. Naruto was trying to downplay himself as she'd seen him do all his life. Well, not anymore, she thought as she stood and stalked towards him, which had him on his own feet, backing up. Now you listen to me, Naruto-kun. I have cared about you since before the academy, but my own self-doubt kept me from acting on it. She poked him in the chest. I'm sorry for that. If I would have been stronger sooner, you wouldn't have been alone. Hinata, I'm talking. Now, please, listen, she said, her eyes softening as she tried to convey everything inside her to him. Naruto swallowed and nodded, stopping. Hinata was close, well within arm's reach. Naruto wasn't concerned. She would never attack him, of that he was sure. I cared about you, as I was saying. But I felt so worthless. Hiashi had made me feel like I was worthless. But I saw you. I watched you struggle and push yourself over the obstacles that everyone put before you. Hinata put a hand on his chest. She could feel his heartbeat. It was steady and strong. I watched that day. When you failed, I wanted so badly to go to you, to try and cheer you up, but again, I let my own self-doubt keep me away, and you needed a friend the most. She looked up into his eyes. She realized in the last 2 years he'd become taller than her, and she noted that if he leaned down he could easily kiss her. Shaking herself mentally, she told herself now was not the time. Then the next day you showed up, with a headband, and I was so happy for you. I wanted to be on your team. She smiled and her other hand itched to reach up and stroke the whisker markings on his cheeks, but she managed to restrain herself, if barely. She needed to get this out. She needed to make him know. When you cheered me on at the Chunin exams, something in me changed. I looked for you during the month until the finals and I couldn't find you. Kurenai-sensei kept an eye on me, and with my injuries I couldn't go far. Then I watched as you defeated Neji. Shino had told me of your vow after I was carried out on the stretcher. I was weak and passed out during the fight, but I woke up near the end. She looked down at her feet a moment. I tried to find you after the invasion. No one knew where you went. I wanted to talk to you, too, to tell you how I felt about you. Every I would manage to get up the courage, you would be dragged off for some mission or another. Hinata looked up at him. I had planned on speaking with you after the Uchiha retrieval. I learned what the council did to you. Naruto was watching her. He heard the emotion in her voice, but something in him was keeping him rooted to the spot. I was mad, so mad they did that to you. All your life they messed with your life and then to do that. Hinata looked up at him, tears threatening to fall. I stole into the Hokage's office. My mother had told me once a tale, of a scroll containing a spirit that would enact vengeance. Hinata. Naruto said her name softly, but she pushed on. I opened it just as Lady Tsunade returned. I made a deal. She looked him right in the eyes. I made a deal. The spirit would punish those who had harmed you and done you wrong, and I would be its vessel until my death. Why would you do something like that, Hinata? For me, I'm not worth it, Naruto said, his voice a whisper, his eyes not leaving hers. He was struggling to focus. Her hand on his chest was warm, it was causing where it touched to tingle strangely. Yes, you are. Hinata yelled. You are worth 100 Konohas to me, Naruto. You are my inspiration, my hero, my confidence. You make me want to be stronger, not to protect a village full of idiots and bigots, but to make you proud of me, to make you see me as worthy of you. Naruto was shocked. Why? Because you're precious to me. Hinata said. Naruto remembered those words long ago from Haku, the gender-confused mist nin who had altered Naruto's perception of what a ninja was on his first mission away from Konoha. Hinata didn't waste her chance. She leaned in and kissed him. Kyuubi's ghostly feet didn't make a sound as he paced back and forth. His ghostly red eyes looking at his apprentice in concern. Anytime now would be fine, Kit. He muttered as he turned and paced back the other way. What the hell are you doing in that mind of yours? Kyuubi muttered, actually missing the link he had to the blonde. He'd been shocked when the 9 tails sprouted. Okay. Those are at least a decade early. What in the name of the celestial dragons is going on? He paced back the other way. I know this is somehow Takasus's fault. I just know it. He muttered, shooting a look at the grave marker of the one vixen that had captured his heart. Dreamscape. Naruto was confused, but he felt himself melting into the kiss. Hinata's one hand was trapped between them on his chest, her other hand was behind his head, her fingers curling into his hair. Time slowed and the pair seemed to be living statues. Finally, after eternity or just a couple minutes, Hinata pulled back slowly, her eyes fluttering open. She smiled as Naruto looked as dazed as she felt, and she felt her heartbeat increase as a huge fox-like grin appeared on his lips. Hinata smiled at him softly. I wanted to do that before I even realized what I was feeling for you. She said, her voice soft. Hinata. Naruto said, her voice soft. She tensed, fearing he was about to reject her, to tell her he had no feelings for her. Thank you, he said, and she her head. Thank you for caring about me. Thank you for all you've done. He leaned in slowly. And thank you for accepting me as I am. He kissed her now. Hinata enjoyed it. He was strong, yet his kiss was tender and filled with promises. He felt his canine teeth nip her lips a bit as he pulled back and looked at her after several more minutes of kissing. What does this mean? He asked her as his breathing slowed down once more. His eyes looking into hers. Us, she said softly. I want us. Naruto smiled. But what will others say? Look at me, Hinata. Tails. And, I think I'll live a really long time. As will I, Naruto-kun. She said softly. Being the vessel of the spirit of vengeance makes me nearly immortal in aging once I reach my majority. I can be killed, but, I won't age after a certain point. Me too. He said. Are you sure? He asked her. I want you, Naruto. For however long we have. She said firmly. Naruto leaned in and kissed her for the third time. When he pulled back, his arms were around her, and he rested his forehead against hers. I have so much to tell you. He said. Naruto led her back to the spot Takasis had talked to him and sat down, his back against the log. Hinata surprised him sitting in his lap. She rested her head on his shoulder. It stayed her Ted after my exile. Frozen tundra. 3 arrows quivered in the lizard man's neck. The spray of blood rained out over the snow and ice as the creature fell backwards, the curved sword falling from its twitching claws. Micah, still numb and weakened, rolled his head over to see a dozen of figures in furs attacking the other lizard men. The huge 4-legged lizard beast was already dead. It had been sliced open, its entrails spilling out upon the snow. They make no sound. He watched as one figure with a familiar-looking bow approached him. A slender gloved hand pulled the fur hood back to reveal. Nami. Micah said weakly. Etude. She said, crouching down next to him and pulling the spikes out of his body. I know that word. Micah said. And you may be right. I was an idiot. Nami shook her head. I should leave you here and take the sword. She said. Nothing stopping you. Micah said. He couldn't feel his limbs and he knew that if she wanted him dead, he would be. He couldn't focus chakra nor Vunla yet. I said I should, but I won't. She said. She looked back over at the other figures as the last of the lizard men fell. They were stripping weapons and armor from the dead and piling the bodies to the side. Ehat y Raymond Rana. She called out. What did you say? Micah asked, curious. I told them I needed a healer here. We need to administer an antidote. The Paked Daig's spikes are toxic. They shut down your body over time. The lavender-haired girl said. Another fur-cloaked figure appeared and Micah saw it was another woman. Fro Rijat we gemat res. The woman said. Nami chose to answer in the normal trade language. I haven't killed him, because he saved my life. Now give him the antidote. The other woman growled and Nami glared. Eys ween maitan. She said in Maida. Do it, she ordered. The woman pulled out a vial and popping the cork poured it in Micah's mouth. He felt a rush of warmth fill his body and after a brief tingling he found himself able to move. Thank you, he said. The woman made a huffing sound and left. Micah looked at Nami who was watching the others harvest the hide of the huge beast as well as meat from it. Thank you for saving me, he said and she turned to look at him. Grateful enough to give me that sword? She asked gesturing at the blade he picked up. Sorry, not that much, he said. Why were you and your friend with that spirit? Nami asked. Master Q. He's not a dead spirit or ghost. Micah said as he sheathed the Hanzo sword across his back. He noticed several of the cloaked figures watched him for a moment before going back to their tasks. It is not natural, Nami said. He should be exorcised immediately. He has no place in the world. Micah looked at the lavender-haired girl and shook his head. Nothing I say can change your mind about that. No. Kyuubi has no body. He shouldn't be allowed to roam. The city dwellers might think it is normal, but they believe they are the power in the underverse. Micah didn't know what to say. The girl confused the hell out of him. So, where are your men folk? He asked. Dead. Nami replied, her eyes watching the others work on stripping the large lizard beast of its flesh and usable parts. Micah wasn't sure what to say. You've been following us, he finally said. Yes, Nami responded. Why? The sword, she said turning her head to look at him. I can't part with it, I'm sorry. Micah answered. He could feel his chakra returning slowly and his Vunla senses were trickling back just as slow. Nami sighed. I wish you would. Micah saw several of the women looking at him now. Their hands were on their weapons. You're going to make this difficult, aren't you? He asked. Nami looked at him sadly. I'm sorry, she said. Me too, Micah answered. Dreamscape. And that's when I ran into you. Naruto finished his tale to Hinata. She'd sat on his lap the whole time, her attention focused on him. She took in his features for several minutes, her left hand playing with his newer longer hair. She buried her nose in his shoulder and inhaled his scent. I don't want to wake up. Hinata said. I finally find you. I feel it too. Naruto said. Naruto had told her everything, even Kyuubi going to see old Bachan and what he'd learned. There is so much I want to tell you, Naruto. And there is much I need to tell you. She said softly. I know. He said. I promise I will come back to Konoha-san for you. He said, seeing her starting to fade in his arms. It's morning back in Konoha, she said sadly. I will be in Konoha for you, Hinata. I promise. Hinata smiled. I'll wait for you, Naruto-kun. You have my heart, she said. You have mine, Hinata. All our missed time. She leaned in and kissed him. Come home soon. Naruto kissed her neck and she sighed before she faded out. Naruto sat there several more minutes. You okay, kid? Takasis asked, coming out of the fog. Yeah, Naruto said, his voice soft. She really does care for you, Naruto. This may be the dreamscape, but what you to have is real. The purple-tailed vixen said. Hey, Takasis-chan, am I rushing in blindly? He asked. The Vulpanioid female laughed. Kid, love is blind. You can know someone for centuries and realize too late that you love them, or you can realize that the perfect woman just sat on your lap for a couple hours and listened to every word you said, memorizing your scent and what you feel like. Naruto looked up at the nine-tailed woman. Don't dwell on if it's too fast, Kit. Takasis said, using the familiar moniker that Q used with him. Loved is the wacky on us all. It's not like you pinned her to the ground and mated her brains out. Naruto blushed and the vixen laughed. You have time, Kit. Get to really know your mate. Kiss her, stupid. Caress, tease and get her all hot and bothered. Takasis stopped speaking. You best wake up. Your pet dragon is in trouble. What? Naruto was on his feet and the vixen was gone. How the hell do I? Demon graveyard. Wake up. Naruto asked, sitting bolt upright and scaring the crap out of the shade who was kneeling next to him. Gah. Baka fox. Naruto said, getting to his feet with a ease that he didn't notice. He unconsciously slipped the two bone handles into pouches on his pants and turned and started walking back the way they came. Hey, where are you going? Hugh asked, hovering after the nine-tailed blonde. Micah's in trouble, Naruto said, not slowing his pace. Wonderful. What the hell happened to you, Kit? Kyuubi asked. I'll explain later, Fox, except Takasis says she's still waiting for you to propose. Naruto shot over his shoulder. Hugh froze. What? He asked in surprise and saw that Naruto was getting away and rushed after his apprentice. Kit? Hugh asked as they continued on their way back to where they'd entered. Sigh, she's very beautiful, Q. He told the shade. She also says that I need to be careful with promises and vows. You'll need to explain that to me, and she says I shouldn't swear to the Zot code. She said it wouldn't be right for me. She's got that right. Not to mention the vow of poverty and celibacy. Oh hell no. Not giving up, Hinata. Not after that kiss. The blonde-tailed Hanyu muttered, and Kyuubi wondered what the hell the young man was talking about. I'll go with what? Naruto sighed and his strides increased. While I was in the dreamscape, Takasis called it, I ran into Hinata, literally. We talked. We kissed. She don't mind I have 9 tails growing above my butt. And mighty fine tails they are, Kit. So, how did you become a Hanyu? Your Takasis and Kami did some alterations. Naruto said. Shocked the hell out of me. Me too, Kit. Hugh admitted. Naruto sighed, considering that they had some distance to cover, yet decided to speak about what he'd learned. I can't swear to the Zot code, but she never said I couldn't be a Zot. Much to think about, Naruto thought as he continued on his way with Kyuubi following at his shoulder. Hinata growled, waking up and seeing Neji standing there. What? Neji raised an eyebrow. Lady Tsunade sent me to retrieve you. Jiraiya has returned. Hinata sighed and closed her eyes. Please. Please let what happened tonight have been real. Please. I'll be right out. Hinata said. Neji nodded and paused. Lady Hinata. He said, pausing. Yes. Is that a hickey on your neck? Hinata's eyes widened and she eeped. Neji managed to get out the door, avoiding the chakra-aided tossed pillow that cracked the door. Shaking his head. Must be that time of the month. Better remember to get 10-10 some chocolate. She's usually the same time as Hinata. Neji muttered, shaking his head. Back in her room, Hinata looked at the mirror. There, where Naruto had last kissed her, was a hickey. It was real. It was real. It was real. Of course it was. I thought we'd settled that back on the dreamscape. Jaka alone. No, the spirit of the winter solstice. Who else do you have floating around in your head? Sorry, I'm just in shock that you got to kiss your boy, came the laughing mental voice of the vengeance spirit. So he knows. What is the matter, girl? You told him how you felt. You kissed him several times. You're not afraid of him now that he's a Hanyu, are you? What? No. I just hope he doesn't think it was a dream and forget about it. Hinata sent back as she finished getting dressed and slipping her weapons pouches on. Forget. Forget. Oh sweet Kami. Hinata, if I could I'd have you slap yourself. You saw his aura. You felt his pulse and heartbeat. He cares, and he's going to be coming back here for you. You heard him. I know, but, teenagers, how dense can you be? Don't fret. Now, let's see what the old hag wants. Don't call her that. Lady Tsunade has earned my respect 100 times over. Heh, heh, your boy calls her Bachan. It's Naruto-kun's way. He and Lady Tsunade have a special bond. It doesn't mean anyone else can do it and get away with it. Like she can hear me. The spirit taunted back. Hinata sighed before leaving her apartment. Neji was leaning against the railing, his eyes on the horizon. I'm sorry Neji-Nisan. Hinata said, seeing him watching her warily. I was having a nice dream. She said lamely, her cheeks tinting with a blush. Neji studied her for a moment. I haven't seen Hinata blush like that except where Naruto was concerned. I don't want to know. Neji thought. It is okay Lady Hinata. I could have found a different way to approach you. Hinata sighed. How are Ten and Lee? She asked as they walked the early morning streets of Konoha. Neji smiled. Actually smiled. Ten-chan is enjoying the new apartment, and the basement dojo. At this Neji blushed, and Hinata paused then actually laughed. As Ino has taunted, have you blessed that room too? Neji growled. That Yamanaka girl needs a boyfriend. He muttered. Hinata nodded at that. She's been lonely since Shikamaru and Tamari became an official couple, and Choji has been dating that Kim girl who works at his parents' restaurant. And Kiba's been housebroken by that civilian school teacher. Neji nodded. Hinata smiled. Her and Neji have gotten closer, and what was fun was that Neji was one of Konoha's biggest gossips. We could try and fix her up with Shino again. Hinata suggested and Neji snorted. Like that worked out so well last time. Hinata had to admit the date that the other Konoha 9 had set up had started out fine. Shino and Ino had started out well enough, but when one of Shino's bugs had crawled out of his sleeve during dinner, Ino had called it off. She's just too high maintenance. Neji said. So are you Neji. Neji looked at his cousin in surprise. Ten told me of your cabinet at home. You have more hair products than her. Neji scowled. She won't let me cut it, and I need those to keep it clean. Hinata laughed at this. Don't worry, we won't tell anyone. Neji felt dread seeing the mischievous look in her eyes. Lady Hinata. He started, but stopped seeing her give him the look. Hinata, can I ask? You're happier than I've seen you in a long time. Hinata smiled. She wanted to tell someone, and Neji was one of her confidants. I met Naruto-kun last night in the dreamscape. A dream. No. Hinata said, cutting him off before he could say something. Jaka alone confirmed it was real. I talked with Naruto, told him how I felt. She blushed a bit at this. Neji's eyes widened as he looked at the hickey on her neck. He gave that to you. Yes. Hinata said, and her fingers were twiddling together as she blushed as they continued to walk the deserted streets. Underverse. Frozen tundra. Micah back-flipped away and used his foot to send a clump of snow into the face of one of the approaching women. Damn it. Another pretty face. At least this time it's not like I'm avoiding a pissed-off father or lover. Arrows flew at him and he used his fur cloak to bat them aside. Still can't use my chakra or Vunla. He thought as he dodged a sling stone. Just give us the sword and you'll be left alone. Nami said. I can't do that. I need this sword. It feels right. Micah said, using the Hanzo sword to slice several arrows in half and then spun to block a spear wielded by another woman. Nami stood back with the sling user and watched the silver-haired man who'd helped her in the labyrinth be attacked by her sisters. Are we doing the right thing? He's able to use the blade. He found it. She thought, notching another arrow and firing it to the left, narrowly missing Micah as he spun away and blocked another of her sisters who was using a pair of sais. Are we doing the right thing? Demon's Graveyard. Naruto sighed as they reappeared in the middle of the tomb's entrance. The stone circles were as they'd been when they went down to the crypts. Naruto started moving and jumped back when the nearly 7-foot guardian reappeared. You've managed to forge a Mechardsapan, impressive. Idendigan said. Then I suppose you're ready to take the oath. No. Naruto said, stopping the nearly 7-foot being from moving. What was that? The guardian asked. I said no, as in I'm not taking the Zod oath. I learned recently I am Han Yu. I can't take a vow and break it. The tomb's guardian glared at Kyuubi, who shrugged and smirked. Wasn't me. Then who would tell you this, foolishness child? Idendigan asked, his voice holding an edge to it. Takasis made the changes for me to use my powers. Kyuubi's chakra was killing me without him in there to be the filter. Naruto said. He saw the guardian wasn't surprised. You knew. Of course. You would be dead in less than a year. Now, however, things have changed, and before you can leave, you will swear the Zod oath. A being like you can't be free without shackles. Naruto growled. I don't think so. You see, Idendigan, the dead speak very clearly. Takasis was adamant that Naruto not swear an oath to the Zot code when he used her remains on this plane to make his mechadsapans. Hugh said from where he was standing behind his apprentice. I don't. Wait, mechadsapans. 2. The guardian said in surprise. Doi. Naruto said, pulling the 2 bone handles from the deep pocket pouches and ignited them. They made a snap hiss sound. Pretty, aren't they? Naruto asked as the 2 blades hummed with the energy that was contained in their fine blades. Idendigan's eyes narrowed. Why is a runt like you allowed access to such power? The scythe in his hands seemed to crackle. I have been a faithful servant, and yet you, a mere human blessed with powers of the demon lords, walks in and takes with impudence. Naruto saw the tomb's guardian's rage building, and shot a look to Q. Idendigan, calm yourself. The nearly 7-footer growled and his eyes seemed to glow with power. Not good. Kit, prepare. Q warned. Naruto leapt back as the guardian seemed to move as a blur, the scythe missing him barely from an overhand strike position. Hey! Naruto yelled, leaping again and looking at Q, who seemed as surprised as he was that the tomb's guardian would attack. Die, worthless Hume! Idendigan roared. I shall send your soul to the beyond. Not good. Naruto thought as he avoided several more close strikes. Damn it! He moves. I can barely register them, even using the Vunla to get a read on him. Naruto thought, and he remembered the chakra blades in his hands. He growled. I just found out a girl I know likes me. He growled. My brother in all but blood might be in trouble. He used the orange blade to block the scythe, which ended up sliced in half. Idendigan looked surprised. And you want to pick a fight because you've been stuck in the dead-end job, because you're a loser. Naruto spun. The purple and orange blades were a blur. Hugh watched and nodded his head. Impressive, Kit. Most impressive. He thought, watching the bisected tomb guardian fall to the ground in pieces. Hugh clapped. Good. Very good. He said, drifting towards the shocked Naruto. I didn't want to kill him. You didn't. Idendigan will pull himself together in time and resume his duties as the tomb's guardian. But, you acted like he was going to be dead when we first got here. Naruto said. Hoped he was dead. Hugh admitted. He's in. The reason he's here is because of his crimes. Until he atones for them, he will remain stuck. Naruto looked down and saw the pieces starting to slowly drift towards one another. No, Kit, we need to check on my other apprentice. I've got a feeling you are right, and he is in trouble. The pair moved on, Naruto grabbing his cloak and gloves he'd discarded earlier, the mechadsapans deactivated and once more tucked away. Need to get him a proper belt for those. Maybe have Shippo make a hook for the ends. Hugh thought as they started the climb up the tunnels that would take them back to the surface. Micah cursed as another stone slipped through his defenses and clipped him hard on the shoulder. His left arm was numb, and his right was sore and covered with cuts. The cold air whipped at him, his cloak was in tatters. Micah ducked and did a side-spinning cartwheel kick, knocking 2 of the women back. I still can't use my chakra. I thought they gave me an ante, damn it. Micah realized that while they dealt with the toxin, they probably gave him a sedative as he felt tired. Nami watched as the silver-haired one kept fighting. He should be unconscious by now, but he's still fighting. What strength, she thought. She hadn't fired an arrow in some time, and her sisters were fighting hard to wear him down, but they were finding his defenses weren't as weak as they thought. Nami watched as another sling stone struck him. His left arm was hanging at his side now. 2 of her sisters had been kicked away, and she watched as he stepped back to catch his breath. Nami looked and saw her sisters were trying to catch theirs as well. 9 against 1, and he's still fighting, and he's not trying to kill us. She thought. Most of her sisters sported light cuts on arms and leg, but nothing serious. He could have killed them several times. Nami thought about how he seemed to pull back or alter his blade's path. But that sword needs to be returned to my family. It was a gift from the fallen angel and I will not allow an outsider to have possession of it. Nami sighed and notched an arrow. I'm sorry. You are honorable, but I must get that sword back to my family, no matter the cost. This time she aimed to hit him, and not just around him. Taking a deep breath, she prayed. She released the arrow with her breath and closed her eyes. If I'm doing what's right for my family and clan, why does it hurt so much? She thought, not wanting to see the arrow strike. She released the arrow with her breath and closed her eyes. If I'm doing what's right for my family and clan, why does it hurt so much? She thought, not wanting to see the arrow strike. The arrow's path was straight and true. Micah didn't see it coming, and with the potion in his system, he wouldn't be able to use Vunla to sense it or his wind to block it with his chakra blocked as well. Mikahamaru sucked in air and cursed himself for not bringing any herbs or potions with him from the tent. He was exhausted, and where the sling stones had struck he could feel the muscles tightening up. He heard something on the wind and turned, seeing the arrow nearly upon him. I've got nothing left, he thought. This is how it ends. I'm sorry, Naruto. I won't be there for you anymore. Micah closed his golden eyes and waited for the end, his right hand holding the Hanzo sword in weary fingers, his left arm useless. I couldn't move right now if I tried. Micah thought, the feathers of the fletching of the arrow making a soft zipping sound in the air as it came closer. Everything was in slow motion. Snap, hiss. Micah opened his eyes to see Naruto standing there with the 2 chakra blades activated and the arrow smoldering on the ground at his feet. Naruto. Micah thought, seeing the changes in his brother. Kami. 9 Tails, the silver-haired teen thought. What are you doing? Naruto growled as he stood there with the wind blowing his hair. His blue eyes were locked on Nami, who seemed frozen on the spot. Micah slumped to his knees, his hand using the Hanzo sword bracing him from completely collapsing, using the sword to do that much. You okay, little dragon? Hugh asked, hovering next to him. Peachy with a slice of keen. Micah said. Even his tongue felt like lead. Hugh chuckled. No, you're not. Bye, you will be. Relax. Micah felt his master reach out, and the Vunla enhanced suggestion, he drifted off to sleep on his knees. Naruto wasn't looking. His eyes were blazing as he looked at the women before him. What the hell were you doing? Nami swallowed. The blonde had changed. He was Kitsune now, and she could feel his killing intent. She was surprised it wasn't melting the snow and ice around them with its heat. Nami Ishii. Hugh addressed her. You attacked my apprentice, even after we helped you, why? Nami swallowed. She didn't like the spirit, but right now she was concerned with the blonde looking at her in rage. And speak trade tongue, as we know you know it. Nami lowered her eyes. The Hanzo sword, she said softly. My clan needs it. It was a symbol, a gift. Bullshit. If the sword really meant that much to your nomadic tribe, you all would have entered the spider swamp and fought to retrieve it. Or post a bounty for it. Hugh said. We couldn't. Nami yelled. She looked up at Kyuubi. Do you realize how many other tribes would have gone out of their way to try and find and steal it? Girl, I know what a Hanzo sword means. You have no say in the matter. It chose to be wielded by that boy there. One of the other girls said something in Maida. No, child. It wasn't just because he was there. You all know that a Hanzo sword will kill an unworthy person that tries to wield it. Nami felt ashamed. She knew that. Her grandmother had explained it to her when she was little. But the thought of her grandfather's blade being found had given her tunnel vision, and when she'd told the council, they too had become insistent on regaining the blade. Mikahamaru Melwasu is a fine wielder for the Hanzo sword. Live with it, or die trying to take it. Hugh said. Naruto's Mekurtsupan blades were drawing the eyes of the other women. Zot. One of them asked. What do you think, child? Hugh answered in basic. He could have spoken with them in Maida. He swore once they were all done with this he was going to force the language down both kids' throats. Nami approached, and Naruto growled, raising both chakra blades into a defensive stance. Kits learned the Shodan defense, when? Hugh thought. I want to see if he's alright. Nami asked as her sisters were conversing. Why should you care? Naruto growled. You just tried to kill him. I didn't want to. Let her over. Hugh ordered. As Nami approached, she stopped before the shade. Give him the antidote to the blocker you gave him. Nami nodded and pulled out a vial and showed the label to Q, who looked and nodded. A warning growl stopped her in her tracks. Naruto. Let her tend him, Q said. Naruto looked at Kyuubi as if he was insane, but the fox had a look in his eyes and Naruto knew something was up. Damned fox, what are you doing now? Naruto thought deactivating the blades, but keeping them in his hands. Oklika saw Mund Kyuubi. Q and Naruto turned to see one of the other women approach. Her eyes were down and the blonde hair was short and spiked. Can you speak trade tongue? Q asked. The girl shook her head. Elyhihtacdyt ed Rufejan. Translations at the end. Q sighed. What is it you want? Do ybu mukewa? The girl said. And what do you think is worth you and your clan attacking my apprentice? Q asked, raising his shadowed eyebrow and crossing his arms. The girl seemed at a loss. Her eyes searched for an answer and she saw her clan sister kneeling next to the sword bearer. Ika we so lmyu sukdan nami. The woman speaks. Kyuubi laughs his off in his mind, but shows nothing to the nomad. And why would I want her? The nomadic woman looked for a way to make things right. The demon lord could return to the capital and demand the elemental empress to put her people to death for this. Krad siga y kuat sita. She said. Q laughed out loud at this. So you'd give away the girl, just like that. Ed fuipt siga yh imila padfa uinlmyhyht ween gedchihak. Kyuubi looked at her. Micah isn't a kitsune. Ra ec ween by t. The nomadic woman said. Her eyes were watching Nami, how the girl seemed lost in thought while watching the sleeping teen. She saw the girl make no attempt to grab the Hanzo sword at all. She'd noticed during the fight how the archer's arrows came close, but never once touched the silver-haired demon spawn. True, he is one of my apprentices. But tying him to a marriage with a woman that tried to kill him, I don't think would be a good thing. The nomad woman felt fear clutch her heart. However, Kyuubi said and motioned for Naruto to listen as well. I will take her. If they wed, fine, but should she try and steal the sword or kill him, then the wrath of the kitsunes will be upon you. The girl is his to do as he pleases. Master. Naruto asked in surprise, but Q held up a hand. Tell her and leave. We have things to do and places to go. The nomad woman nodded eagerly. She'd thought the whole thing would have been a bad idea from the start. She would tell the council what had happened and hope her clan sister would be well with her new people. Nami, she said and motioned for her to follow her away to speak. Naruto watched them walk off towards the others. You know he's going to be pissed at you, right? Q chuckled. I think it will be fun watching him with a permanent girlfriend. It'll keep him on his toes. Naruto sighed. What are you planning, Fox? Me. Q asked innocently. What makes you think I'm planning anything, Kit? Because you have that look in your eyes. The girl is infatuated with our dragonling. And as Micah gets older he will need a mate beside him that is strong. Ishii is strong, and from good stock. Her family was truly blessed by Hanzo. He doesn't just give those swords out to anyone. So it is hers rightfully. Naruto asked, his eyes watching the group as they talked. Nami didn't seem pleased with what they were saying to her. No. The sword chose Micah as its wielder as I said. And in time, he will pass it on down in his family. Naruto slipped one of the handles away and used his free hand to scratch the back of his neck. I don't like this. You're going to be forcing him into contact with the girl who just tried to kill him. Kit, look around. The whole area is wrecked. Micah held back. Granted his chakra and Vunla were blocked, but look at the nomads. A few cuts and bruises. He went out of his way not to harm them. We need to get him out of the cold until he wakes up. Naruto said and Q nodded, using the Vunla to levitate Micah and his sword and head back towards the tent. When she is done she will join us, Kit. Come on. We need to bury that rune blade you have as well. Naruto nodded. Can't we sell it? He asked. You really want a blade that eats chakra out and about in the world? Q asked in surprise. No, it was bad enough Itachi's partner, Kisame, has one, but I don't think it's a rune sword. Oh, it's a rune blade. But the Akatsuki warped it. Bet if you look at the hilt you'll see runes etched in the blade that only allow it to feed on chakra that it bites into with those saw teeth it has. Q counters as he lays Micah on his bedroll and using Vunla feeds the fire till the shelter is toasty warm. Speaking of Akatsuki, you believe Itachi's on our side? Naruto asked. Kyuubi sighed. Naruto had told him all that Hinata had told him in the dreamscape. It's possible, Kit. He never actually attacked you. But to kill his clan, to protect me, an orphan, Naruto was still in shock about Hinata liking him. Itachi being on their side as a spy. But that does explain some things. How Jiraiya knew they were at the hotel so quickly. And how Itachi and him didn't fight and how he allowed that window to be blown open. Hugh continued. How quickly he cleaned up Itachi's black fire. Naruto said as he sat. The tent flap opened and Nami entered. She looked uncertain and sad. Naruto noticed how her eyes went to Micah. Maybe the old fox does know what he's talking about. The blonde nine-tail thought as he watched her go to her knees and put her bow before her. What is thy bidding, master? She said, her voice low and soft.